Good evening. To call the meeting to order, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please remain standing. We're going to have a moment of silence. This being Memorial Day weekend, let us pause and remember all those in our armed forces who gave their lives protecting our country. Thank you. Be seated, please. Roll call, please, Janice.
Mayor Kavanaugh,
Here.
Vice Mayor Brown,
Here.
Councilmember DePorter,
Here.
Councilmember Yates,
Present.
Councilmember Hanson, Councilmember Magazine,
Here.
Councilmember Leger. Thank you.
Okay, I am going to postpone until next meeting my economic development report due to the lengthy agenda that we have today. So I'm going to go right into a presentation by Executive Director Ken Strobeck of the League of Cities and Towns regarding the 2015 legislative session. Ken?
Thank you, Mayor. I'm going to click open this presentation here. There we go. Good evening, Mayor Kavanaugh, members of the council. It's good to see you this evening. I know you have a very long meeting, so I'll be as expeditious as possible and give you a report on the concluded legislative session and let you know that it was the shortest session in the last 50 years. It actually concluded in early April at 81 days. It was the shortest session, again, like I said, since 1968. So that was very unusual. I'm sure you followed that as it was occurring. And the general effective date for all bills passed, which is 90 days after the formal sine die adjournment, this year is July 3rd. So unless otherwise specified in any legislation, the effective date of whatever was passed is July 3rd, which is, again, unusually early. As you can see from the statistics here, there were 1,163 bills introduced, and 344 of those made it through the House and the Senate, and then made their way to the governor's desk. That's about 30% of the total bills that are introduced, and that's about on par with typical legislative years. The governor signed 324 of those bills, and obviously the difference there is issued 20 vetoes. As you can understand, it was a very unusual session because of the brand new governor and new leadership in the legislature. And the focus on this session included a number of issues that were not directly related to cities and towns, although we followed all these items, but such things as states' rights, a lot of bills that had to do with the rights of the state versus the federal government. Lots of discussion and controversy over education standards, the Common Core curriculum. There were quite a few bills and discussions that had to do with elections, particularly as it related to campaign finance and the collection of ballots, ballot harvesting. Big fight over microbreweries and whether they should be allowed to continue with their certain gallons limitation and so forth, and a good amount of discussion over the ride-sharing services, Uber and Lyft, and also whether Tesla, the electric car manufacturer, can sell cars directly to consumers, bypassing the dealership laws. So those were all items that did consume quite a bit of time in the legislature. Like I said, those were not directly related to cities and towns. Sort of the environment that we faced, as I mentioned a minute ago, is this was Governor Ducey's very first legislative session, and of course he had a large number of people in his office who were also beginners with the legislative process, except for his chief of staff, of course, Kirk Adams, who was a former Speaker of the House, who certainly knows the process and was very helpful in getting legislation communicated back and forth between the governor's office and the legislature. And there were a lot of new House members as well. Another item that was kind of a feature of this year's session was when it came to issues that had to do with cities and towns. It seems like just about everything that can be passed into law has been passed into law. And so now when legislators sometimes get frustrated with certain situations, they discover it's already a law, so then they start passing, well, we really mean it provisions, which has to do with punishments. And there were several bills that came up this year that said, well, if an elected official or a staff member exceeds their authority or violates this law, they will be removed from office and they won't have the benefit of the services of the city or town to defend them if they are sued. They're personally liable. So there were a lot of statutory punishments that were proposed this session. Not too many of those actually did get into effect, however. Also, a feature that we see over and over again is just the very, very limited exposure that so many legislators have to local government. They're not familiar with cities and towns. Many of them have never served even on a school board or any kind of local advisory committee or commission. And so it's a matter of education that we have to spend a lot of time really letting folks know what the lines are and how cities and towns are not in competition with the state. We complement state services, but there's certainly always a matter of tension because the Constitution does say that for general law cities and towns, the statutory laws are superior to city laws. So you often have people who want to make laws for the local governments, and we always advocate for local decision-making rather than to have those decisions taken away by the legislature. And then the big issue always every session has to do with the budget. And as I put on this slide, the budget deficit, which we were facing when the legislature was in session and when they passed their budget. Since then, however, the situation has improved quite significantly. According to JLBC, the Joint Legislative Budget Committee, I just saw a report today that they are now projecting that collections since the conclusion of the session have exceeded forecast by $228 million. So if the legislators had known that there was another $228 million in the Treasury, they might have made some different decisions when it came to what things they funded and what things they didn't fund. But anyway, that will be an ongoing amount of discussion as we move forward. There was a budget impact on cities and towns that had to do with the funding of the Department of Revenue operations to a limited extent. I'll talk about that in a couple of minutes. Also, we see the trend having to do with preemptions. As we always face those year after year. It just seemed like we had a lot more of those things coming forward this year. A few of them had very, very large economic impacts. Fortunately, those did not pass. And many members, like I said, are just unaware of the impact of the bills that they pass on local governments. And also, they're just unaware of the history of how we got where we are. You know, a lot of them say, well, we should, make cities cut their sales taxes without understanding we don't operate on property taxes like, cities in most other states do. We really have been, over the last 80 years, had a policy of saying that we're going to finance local services with sales taxes. So, again, a matter of education and just letting people know where we are in comparison to other states. So let's talk for just a few minutes about some of the laws that were passed. The first one, this was on a super fast track. This was a bill that we actually had a hand in writing and had it introduced in both the House and the Senate. As you all will remember, 2 years ago we had a very, very large bill, House Bill 2111, that reformed and really made major changes to the TPT, or the sales tax system. And there were three components of that, had to do with collections, auditing, and construction contracting. The first two pieces are moving forward. There's some bumps in the road with the collections. The auditing is going fine, but the construction contracting still had a lot of unanswered questions and a lot of ambiguity and a lot of confusion in exactly how to implement that. So we worked with industry representatives as well as the governor's office and legislators to help come up with Senate Bill 1446. And what it does is, when it comes to construction contracting, it draws a bright line where there was a lot of confusion earlier. This now draws a very bright line between what is MRRA, which is maintenance, repair, replacement, and alteration, and versus new construction, because that was always the question. Where does one end and the other begin? Because they're taxed differently under House Bill 2111. So this bill has some very, very bright lines about, for residential property as well as for commercial projects, where the line is between maintenance and repair and replacement, or when it's new construction. So both the cities and towns, the taxpayers, everyone will understand where those lines are. And of course, that'll take some education. The DOR is out now with some education programs going around the state. But like I said, we did work with representatives of the construction industry, and they helped us come up with the definitions and the terms for this bill. It really goes back to the principle of, if you're a handyman or just somebody that's doing repairs and maintenance, you no longer have to file TPT returns where you're doing your work. You buy your materials tax, and you pay the retail tax when you buy those materials. And then you can do the work and not have to pay tax where you're doing that work. But if you're in the major construction business, you still have to file a TPT return and pay tax on the location where you're using the materials. And that was a very important feature of House Bill 2111 when it came to cities and towns. So I could go into great detail on that, and I'd be happy to come back and do that another time if you'd like. But nevertheless, 1446 was very much needed for both the cities and towns as well as for the contracting community in order to have some clarity on that. So that was a very helpful bill to get passed. And like I said, it was the second bill signed by the governor, because we had it introduced on both sides of the legislative process. Got up to his desk in January. He signed it into law, and it actually went into effect. It had an early effective date. It went into effect on May 1st. So just a couple of weeks ago, this bill went into effect. The other bill that had to do with budgets was Senate Bill 1471. That was one of the big budget bills, and this is the one that contained the assessments for cities and towns for operations of the Department of Revenue. As a program city, you've always had your taxes collected and remitted back from the Department of Revenue just as part of their operational procedures. But again, because there have been a lot of changes to the TPT system, and because of what was at the time a shortfall in the budget, the governor's budget and the legislative budget as approved assesses cities and towns for a total of $10.9 million divided up by population. So you'll get a bill, Ken, when this comes up. It'll be in three pieces starting in the next fiscal year, and July, August, September, three payments based on what your population is as your share of that $10.9 million. And this is to pay for the operations of the Department of Revenue collecting taxes on your behalf. And then there's another additional assessment of $2 million against the 15 non-program cities that are going to actually go to the Department of Revenue when they're ready to have them join that program. But there's a lot of additional computer work that has to be done, and so that $2 million is assessed on those 15 in addition to this 10.9 in order to help DOR do the programming for their computer systems. So that was really the major impact on cities and towns out of the budget. When you look at K-12 and higher ed and a lot of other services of the state, we felt like that this was not something that we wanted, obviously, but certainly not nearly as bad a situation as could have been if large amounts of shared revenue had been diverted, or if there had been other activities that were more harmful. By the way, there is, as always, a shift in the HERF funding. It's down a little bit from last year, but there was still a shift of $96 million out of the local government share of HERF money. And of course, that's supposed to go to fix streets and roads and highways, and that's very important in this community, I know. But $96 million is going to the Department of Public Safety to pay for highway patrol out of the HERF fund. This was a league resolution, House Bill 2214. Last year, we had a bill that was passed that was only effective for 1 year, just for the elections that occurred in 2014. And this changes the calculation formula for all municipal elections going forward and says that if you, since we're nonpartisan, if you get the majority, outright majority of the vote in a primary election, you don't need to go to a general election ballot in order to be considered elected to your council seat or to a mayor's position. So this just saves you having to have a second election where the outcome would already be known. There would be no opponent on the ballot. It would just be a second election. But 2214 says you calculate the vote, and if you get the outright majority in the primary, a second election is not needed. There were some preemptions that were passed, preempting local laws. Senate Bill 1072 preempts it's called inclusionary zoning. It basically says that you can't require a developer to include a certain number of low-income or affordable housing units in their particular subdivision. So far, no one has even passed a local ordinance to require that, but this is one of those preemptive preemptions that says not only is nobody doing it, nobody can do it in the future. Senate Bill 1079 was one that the Multi-Housing Association promoted, and that says that apartments are to be treated as commercial properties, so apartment owners can send out for or do bids, competitive bids for private trash hauling instead of being required to use the municipal hauler. Senate Bill 1342 says that only those people who actually reside in a property and are using utility services can be charged for utility services, water, sewer, electricity, et cetera. And this came from the realtors who were frustrated when some communities said, if you want the water turned on when you're showing a house, you have to pay for it. Instead, now this just says that the people who own or occupy that house are the ones that are responsible. And Senate Bill 1241, this is probably the one that's gotten the most publicity. This is the so-called plastic bag ban that says you can't prohibit styrofoam containers and you can't prohibit plastic bags in grocery stores and things like that. It actually originally started out as a bill that had to do with the reporting of electricity consumption in large commercial buildings. Apparently that's going on in some other cities in other states, and it's not something that anybody's doing in Arizona, but this was another one of those preemptive preemptions. I just heard this morning that Bisbee, which is the only city in the state that actually has a plastic bag ban, is planning to sue the state on this on a charter matter, because Bisbee is a charter city, and so they're going to say, hey, this is a matter of local concern, not a matter of statewide concern. So we'll be interested to see how that turns out. All right, there were a lot of bills that were proposed but that failed, and in part, and several of these failed because of the just the timing of the session. When it got right down to the tail end, the House was, in the minds of the Senate, the House was dragging its feet on the final couple of days. So when the final day came along and the Senate had waited for 7, 8, 10 hours for the House to process bills, they finally just gave up and said, we're going home. So they just adjourned and left, and there were several bills that either were going to go to conference committee or needed concurrence in the other chamber that never got acted on because they just ended in the middle of the night. Actually, it was very, very early in the morning. This was a bill that we thought had a great chance of passage. House Bill 2324 unanimously passed out of the House committee, unanimously passed the House of Representatives, got over to the Senate, unanimously passed out of the Senate committee. But the Senate president's a very influential person, and he or someone on his staff didn't like this bill, and so it never got out of the Senate. It would have applied the same standards for municipal intergovernmental agreements as you have with engineers and contract and other kinds of service providers, architects and engineers, that would have said we're only responsible to indemnify those workers or those projects for which we have direct control. Because right now what's happening in a number of communities is ADOT is coming in and they're in charge of implementing certain transportation improvements, and they say, we'll give you this transportation improvement if you sign this contract. And the contract says you not only indemnify your workers, you indemnify ADOT, you indemnify all their subcontractors, anybody else that they may hire. So, I mean, you end up indemnifying the whole half the Western world in order to get a road project. And we just wanted to say only those things that we actually have direct responsibility for should we be on the hook for. That bill seemed to be, like I said, uncontroversial until it got over to the Senate. We've heard mixed reports on the outcome of this, that there are some projects where ADOT is being more accommodating in their contracts, others where they're not. So we'll try to run this again next year and hope that we can have a better outcome. House Bill 2254 was the one that gave us the most trouble during this session. It would have eliminated the residential rental tax. And this is a tax that the vast majority of cities and towns use in Arizona. And like I said, this again comes from our history of how we do business. And the TPT on residential rental is not assessed on renters. I think that's very important to point out. It's assessed on the property owner on the business of renting property. And so there were a lot of misstatements that were made about this bill that said, oh, the poor renters are being forced to pay this tax. They're not, unless the property owner chooses to pass it along to them. And we actually had several property owners who came in and testified in committee, said, I own houses and I pay the tax, I don't pass it on to my renter. But that was the argument that the other side put up. The reason this was so impactful is this one policy bill had an impact of $90 million statewide on cities and towns. It's just like chop off $90 million from revenue. And it was just, there was no good reason for it. It was just a member who said, I don't like it, and the association, the Multi-Housing Association said, we don't like it, so let's just get rid of it. And so fortunately, it did not pass. House Bill 2570, you probably heard about. This is one that we kind of dubbed the I Hate the Desert Bill. This was the one that said that cities and towns couldn't require vegetation to be protected and preserved and replaced when development occurred. And the outcry on this, not only from cities and towns, but just from the general public, was pretty extreme. And so that bill did not advance. One that had a much more got further than those other two was Senate Bill 1167 that would have eliminated all photo radar photo enforcement. It eventually died in a House committee, and I'm sure we'll see this again. We see this bill every year. There were a lot of bills that had to do with firearms. House Bill 2320 was the one that said people can bring guns into public buildings. This is similar to the bill that Governor Brewer vetoed 3 years in a row. It never got out of the legislature, so Governor Ducey didn't have to take a stand on it. The same with House Bill 1291. This is one of those that said if you at the local level ever passed any ordinance that was more strict than state gun laws, then you'd be removed from office and all those kinds of things that I talked about earlier. And then Senate Bill 1330 was even further, and it said if you passed any law that actually complied with federal law, but the federal law was more strict than state law, then you would have been removed from office for that. But that one also did not pass. There were several other bills that had to do with TPT or taxes. Every year there's all these groups that come in and want to be exempted from taxes. Senate Bill 1120, the fine art auction people said that the fact that they're now having to pay tax on auction artwork, that was, again, the result of House Bill 2111 from 2 years ago. They said that's impacting their business and they wanted to have an exemption. It looked like it was going to get through, but this was one of those bills that died at the very last night because it just didn't get acted on. Senate Bill 1133 was one that looked rather harmless on its face. It just said that if somebody had paid sales tax or TPT tax on a particular transaction and they didn't get the transaction, like the company went out of business or something, then they could go to the Department of Revenue and get their tax back. Well, that sounds reasonable, doesn't it? Except for the fact that, again, we are not a sales tax state, we're a transaction privilege tax state. And so the obligation to pay the tax is not on the purchaser, it's on the business. So if we had had this provision that said an individual can go to the Department of Revenue and get sales tax back, that would have really changed the nature of who the taxpayer is. And it would have opened up sort of Pandora's box to really disrupt a lot of our system. And so this was our argument on this bill, is that not so much that the people shouldn't get their money back, but it's whose money is it and who actually paid it. House Bill 2419, that was one that again failed to pass the Senate. It prohibited cities and towns from charging a fee on pawn shop transactions having to do with gold. And for some reason, this bill was the zombie bill of the session. It kept coming back again and again and again. It died on committee, it died on the floor, it died, but a certain powerful person was a close friend of the pawn shop industry, and it kept coming back. But again, at the last minute, it failed to pass. In the future, some of our challenges will be the same as what we've seen this session. The budget, school funding, and HERF, of course, always an issue. Local decision-making and preemption. A lot of issues on regulatory reform, economic development, and TPT authority and elections. These are all the perennial issues that we face over and over again. There's two other issues that I do want to mention that were not the direct result of legislation this year, but will be back again in the future. One is related to the House Bill 2111, and it has to do with the TPT implementation. And Mayor Kavanaugh heard a report on this at the League Executive Committee on Friday. We're having some, again, bumps in the road when it comes to the ability of DOR to appropriately take on the load of the self-collecting cities and meet their new deadline. It was supposed to be January 1 of 15, now it's January 1 of 16, and they're behind schedule again. So that may slip even further, and we'll keep you updated on that, exactly how that project progresses. And then another issue, I spent 6 hours today in meetings having to do with the public safety pension retirement system, PSPRS, and the report of the League Task Force. We met for 2.5 hours with labor representatives today, going over that. We met with Senate leaders and people that are working on that in the Senate today as well. And you'll hear more about that proposal as it comes forward. But we're all facing huge increases in the unfunded liability for PSPRS, the escalating costs for PSPRS, and so the League Task Force has issued a document, they call it the yardstick, which is not a specific proposal, but it's a set of standards that we believe should be part of the design of any future plan. And so that effort is moving forward. And just concluding, I'll hope to see you all at the League Annual Conference, August 18th through 21 in Tucson. It'll be excellent as usual, and we have a huge agenda, lots of breakout sessions and educational opportunities, and so we just look forward to seeing you there, and I'll be happy to answer any questions.
All right, Ken, thank you so much for coming out and giving us this legislative wrap-up. That's a great presentation. We appreciate it.
Good, thank you.
Any questions? Councilman Yates.
Thank you, Mayor. Ken, nice to see you again.
Thank you.
To bring this issue back up, and I appreciate your speaking with me, both collectively and in private. But the maintenance, repair, replacement, and alteration, the TPT tax, Fountain Hills, this is going to be a pretty big issue. Where is the threshold then? I understand the description, but at what point does it become a big project or a general contract project? Is it threshold by monetary or how many subs? Thank you.
Yeah. Good question. There's two standards. Like I said, there's a residential and then the commercial. On the residential, it's a percentage. If you have a project that is 25% or less of the property's full cash value as determined by the county assessor, then it would be considered MRRA. Anything that's 25% or over is a major remodel or new construction. And then on the commercial side, there's a three-part test. It's a contract amount, it has to meet all three of these. If it fails in one, then it's not. A contract amount of $750,000 or less, 40% of the existing square footage, or an expansion of 10% or less of the existing square footage. It has to meet all three of those in order to be considered a major construction project. So that'll be some work to determine that and make all those determinations. But again, like I said, at least we do have some standards, the Bright Line standards now.
Madam Mayor, quick follow-up. Thanks, Ken. So based on $1 million value of home, you can go up to $250,000 worth of work and not pay any taxes on the materials.
Well,
In this
it's
town
not
fund?
really any taxes on the materials.
I apologize, you're right. Unless they purchase those materials in Fountain Hills, we would not collect the sales tax on those items.
Depends, again, on the nature of the contractor. The contractor, if they're a commercial or a general contractor and they're doing that work, they may still file a report, but the threshold for requiring that is, you're right, 25% of the total value.
Thank you, Mayor.
Any other questions? Councilman Magazine.
With regard to the PSPRS unfunded liability, I don't pretend to know a lot about it, but can you tell me whether or not that is, the amount that's owed is steady? Is it climbing? Is it going down?
It depends on the nature of your workforce and how many retirees you have and all that. But in general, I would say it's going up because as people are retired, they're entitled to benefits, and so then you're obligated to pay that. And part of the problem with the system as we see it is it's not a system. It's 256 separate systems, each one with their own individual board. And so one of our recommendations is to end that system, to basically close it down and start a brand-new system that is one pool of resources, one set of investment policies, et cetera, and then you spread that risk out much broader, because there are some cities and towns that have a 10, 15, 20% rate for their retirement costs. Others are up to 60, 70%. And so it's all a matter of what your workforce is and what your experience is. Of course, you contract for police services, so you don't have police on that. But there are some communities that are just really being hammered with that. And in fact, I understand, and I don't know all the details of this, but I think MCSO is even calculating part of their retirement plan in the contract that you're paying. So they're a member of PSPRS as well.
That's my understanding.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, any other questions? If not, okay.
All right. Thank you very
Thanks again.
much.
Our next is recognition of the Town of Fountain Hills National Make a Difference Day Grant Award in the amount of $10,000 from USA Today to the town's nonprofit recipient, the Fountain Hills Noon Kiwanis Organization. Okay?
Mayor Kavanaugh, members of the council, again, our volunteer coordinator has a presentation to present to you and for a needed project and for our partners in that project that we were funded, and they, Heather got to go to Washington, D.C. to receive that. We were one of how many, Heather?
14.
14 in the country to receive this grant and this award.
All right.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and council members. I'm so happy to be here because it means we won. We won a national award for our own Fountain Hills Make a Difference Day. The National Make a Difference Day is 22 years old. It is an initiative started by USA Today magazine and backed by the Gannett Corporation, funded by Paul Newman's foundation and his brand, Newman's Own, and then also Points of Light, which is the largest national volunteer organization, got in on it and wanted to sponsor. USA Today really wanted a day where all communities, towns came together and everyone went out in their community and figured out how to volunteer, how to serve someone else in their own community. So they decided that the best way to do that was to put it out there and then award people throughout the nation for doing that. It's always on the fourth Saturday of October. And Fountain Hills we started our own Make a Difference Day 7 years ago. So this October 24th will be our 7th year of starting the program. Who has helped? In the last 5 years, we've helped over 300 residents. Most of the residents have moved here 25, 30 years ago. They were able-bodied, they had cars, they had spouses. Life was different. Now they have health issues. Often they're alone. These are folks who really want to stay in their own home, want to stay in Fountain Hills, and they're often invisible to us. We see them in Safeway or Bashas' or walking the streets, and we don't really know their full story. So we wanted to reach out to those people, and the way that we invite them to participate to receive assistance is through our volunteer transportation program, the Give a Lift program. I become aware of a lot of the needs that way, through the Home Delivered Meals program, and also through the Area Agency on Aging. How are residents helped? Well, we do a lot. I work closely with our code enforcement officer for getting a lot of landscaping before it gets out of control in people's yards. That's one of the first things that a lot of people cannot afford to do, is to hire landscapers. And so we do a lot of landscaping. We have built over 18 wheelchair ramps throughout the city, throughout the town, as well as hand railings to go with them. That has allowed a lot of people to come and go in their homes. One gentleman told us it was the first time he was able to go get the mail by himself. And so these are changes that really do make a difference, and our volunteers get to experience that firsthand. We do a lot of deep cleaning. We've installed doors, toilets, sinks, replaced light fixtures, patched stucco, replaced filters and batteries, and organized garages and basements. The owners provide the materials, and if they're unable to do that, we get them donated. Paul's Ace Hardware is a terrific sponsor of this event, as is Home Depot. Who volunteers? Well, in this town, I always say Fountain Hills is the small town with the big heart. And we don't have a problem coming up with volunteers. In just the last 6 years, over 2,000 volunteers have come forward to help this program. We recruit from the clubs and organizations in towns, the faith community members, individuals, as well as our wonderful local newspaper helps us recruit. Here, these are a list of some of the local businesses that support us. A lot of them also provide services such as cleaning carpet, landscaping. If anyone has a truck or a trailer, talk to me, because you are gold. I know Councilmember Brown has helped us out with that before. And now this is a video that was created and was shown on the Today Show.
Make a Difference Day helped us tremendously. My husband is 85, and he has dementia. He used to do everything in the house, and all of a sudden, he can't do anything.
Oh my goodness. We did a lot of landscaping in the back. We tried to get rid of a Gila monster, but he unfortunately keeps on coming back again.
The Make a Difference Day program is nationally the largest day of volunteerism, but in Fountain Hills, we have a little unique program where we reach out to residents in need. We have a lot of residents who are elderly, homebound.
You are doing work that sometimes they would like to do themselves, but they are just physically unable to do.
Over 6 years, we've had over 2,000 volunteers, and they have direct contact and work with the owners of homes.
Neighbors doing work for neighbors.
Bob broke his both hips, left and right side, and he's been in a wheelchair for a couple years now and is really not able to get around the house too well.
Came out and they were so friendly, and they worked real hard. They cleaned up the yard and cleaned up the porch and built the ramps for me.
Over the 6 years, the program has served directly or indirectly just under 300 residents that live in Fountain Hills?
I've had Parkinson's for about 20 years, and I had young onset Parkinson's, and it's a progressive disease, and unfortunately my disease is progressing.
We've got a great community of teammates that, want to give to the community and are very gracious, since we had 15 folks actually come out and help out.
These wonderful people offered to give me some help, and it wasn't only the help that they gave me physically, but the emotional lift that these people gave me, that I know that people really cared, that it was a genuine group, and it was a wonderful experience.
And now when I get worried about, how am I ever going to do this, or how am I ever going to do that, I remember that in October, there's always the Make a Difference Day.
Okay. And thanks for getting so dressed up and letting us come to you. We found out that was shown on the Today Show, and they're going to be sending us a copy. I don't know in what format, but that was exciting. But I would like to lift up the volunteers who are in that, because they're here. Maggie and Paul Appledorn and Gina Merkel from Anytime Fitness. So yay, they're the heroes. Okay, how does the Fountain Hills Make a Difference Day work? I just want to give a brief understanding of that, because it can be a little complicated. We start with a wonderful, hardworking, group of planners that serve on the committee of 12. They have a big heart, and they're willing to visit prospective homes and see if they really would be suitable for a project. And the questions they look at are, we first want to determine what the needs are of the resident and what is realistic for us to get done in those 4 hours. It's not a lot of time, but we get a lot done when we have 25, 30 people at a project. Also, what tools and materials are needed for that particular project. And then we have them sign a form that came from our town attorney's office, the private property permission form. So at our meetings, we always discuss what the projects are, and in 2014, there were 48 projects, 5 of which were in our parks. So we're recruiting volunteers. They're all registering. Worksite coordinators, they're the ones that I hand select. They're people who usually have specific skills that will work in a certain project, or maybe they have a relationship with the person that will be serving. So they're the ones that are the go-to people. They lead the group of workers for each project. The day of the event, the picture at the bottom, we're gathered here at Golden Eagle Park. There's an on-site registration for anyone who shows up that's unregistered, and we have projects for them. We don't want to miss anyone, and a waiver of liability, of course. Vendors and worksite coordinators are introduced quickly. They meet with their team. All of the tools and materials are designated by project numbers, so they're all gathered together. So teams just come pick up their materials and take off, and they leave by 8 o'clock. It's amazing to me. And they work until noon or sometimes 1 o'clock. I visit as many sites as possible, and I always bring the extra water, snacks, and whatnot, which we do have for them. I forgot to say that. So. Okay, the National Make a Difference Day Award Program. So the National Make a Difference Day project that USA Today and Gannett and whatnot sponsor has been in existence for over 20 years, and they honor people on a national level. We are one of 3 cities chosen across the nation. The other one was in Ohio, and the other one was in Delaware. So they read what we had, what we're doing here, and they were so impressed. And I do think the Gila Monster story got them to it. Kind of stuck. Everywhere we went, they were repeating the Gila Monster story. 11 nonprofits are also recognized. So 3 cities or towns and 11 nonprofit organizations, a total of 14 winners nationally. All 14 national awardees receive a $10,000 donation from Newman's Own. So the way this happened is last November, I filled out the application at the encouragement of committee members. Well, you should fill it out, Heather, maybe we'll win. And so I filled it out online. I really didn't think much about it. And then I didn't hear anything until early March. I was in the Burger King drive-thru. and my phone rang, and it was a staff member from USA Today, and she was saying, we received over 2,400 applications, and your town is one. And the Burger King staff was even saying, yay, okay, this is great. I don't know what that means, but that was exciting. So let's see here. When you're a municipality, you have to give your money away. So we're going to pass it on, and they want us to pass it on to an organization, a nonprofit that has been involved in the Make a Difference Day locally. And here in Fountain Hills, the Noon Kiwanis Group has been very involved from the get-go, serving on the planning committee, serving in big, tough projects they've had. And so they will be receiving the $10,000 award, and they will be using that to complete the Centennial Project in Golden Eagle Park, replacing the, I think it's 20-year-old tot lot that they'll be working. So we're delighted with that. Okay. Okay, now we're at the award event. I just thought this would be fun for you to see because USA Today flew, all expenses paid, 2 of us out. And I took with me our, what is he called? IT administrator, Mike Chicarone, came with me. He's in the process of making a video on Make a Difference Day so we can take it to sponsors and whatnot. And he is responsible for all of the great pictures. Just a few are from USA Today. But he did a great job, and he also helped me put this together. So he's very valuable to me and to the Make a Difference Day project. When we got to Washington, this trolley that you see, the picture on the upper right, those are the other honorees, and it was just a great celebration of extraordinary Americans. That's all I can say. It was just extraordinary. They all are doing amazing things in their own nonprofits and in their own cities. So I was very proud to represent Fountain Hills. Okay. Okay, now we're at the luncheon. This is the actual event. The luncheon was, the venue for the luncheon was at the National Museum for Women in the Arts. Oh, I guess we're moving forward on its own. Okay, that was Natalie Morales. She's a special guest. These are all other people who have won. Here's a high school boy who started a program for feeding the homeless. There's Mike and I enjoying our lunch. That was great. And the venue itself was so beautiful. And Natalie Morales from the Today Show. And Idina Menzel, the woman who sings Let It Go, and she's a Broadway actor, there she is. She was a guest speaker. This is the whole group of awardees, and it was just a great, wonderful privilege. Now, we have the check presentation. So who you're looking at from left to right, the president of Newman's Foundation, followed by the CEO of Points of Light, and then, of course, me and Mike, and then the president and publisher of USA Today. So it was a great opportunity, and I'm so grateful to this town and the volunteers, terrific volunteers. So,
Heather, this is a great honor for our town to get this award. And I know you are always so gracious to talk about your volunteers and to give them credit for everything that we see here. But we all know that you spearheaded this program years ago, and you took it from a small group of volunteers to what it is today. So we honor you also because you brought this to our town, and we give you a...
I don't know what to say. Thank you.
Oh, no, we want a speech now.
I'm so tender-hearted sometimes. Mostly I'm not. But okay, now one thing we do have is we invite Mike Charnow as a representative of the Noon Kiwanis to please come forward at this time to receive your fake check.
So we have...
Yeah.
It's Mike also? And Mike out of his booth?
Mike from the booth. Mike, the cameras are in good shape. Come out here.
Mayor Kavanaugh and Town Council, just quickly want to say I don't have 32 slides tonight, but just wanted to obviously thank Heather, and it's a tough act to follow, and her dedication, as you said, Mayor, is phenomenal, and we really want to thank her and the town of Fountain Hills for having Make a Difference Day and for allowing us to participate, and obviously for her and her committee to pick the Noon Kiwanis Club to receive this $10,000. Just to elaborate real quick on our project, it is our centennial project celebrating the 100th anniversary of Kiwanis International and the 40th anniversary of our club here in Fountain Hills. And we do plan to work with the town and replace the tot lot over in Golden Eagle Park, which we worked on years ago to fundraise for that as well. So it kind of comes back full circle. And so I just want to thank everybody for that. And there's a lot of deserving clubs and organizations in town that do a lot of work. But Noon Kiwanis is certainly honored to be a part of this. And I think I'm going to go to Burger King now and see if I get another phone call. So, thank you very much.
All right, great presentation. Janice, do we have any speaker cards?
Mayor, no requests were received.
All right, we'll go on to our consent agenda items. We have 4. Can I get a motion to accept as printed?
Mayor, so moved.
And a second? Second. And I need a roll call vote for that, please.
Councilmember DePorter?
Aye.
Councilmember Maxine?
Aye.
Councilmember Lachey?
Aye.
Councilmember Hanson? Aye. Councilmember Yates?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Brown?
Aye.
Mayor Kavanaugh?
Aye.
7-0, Mayor.
Thank you. We will start with our regular agenda items. We will be moving item number 17 to the top of the list right now. And we will turn to 17. Consideration of approving an employment agreement with Grady Miller for the position of town manager. Andrew?
Mayor, members of the council, as you know, your town manager is experiencing the largest case of short-timers disease we've seen in a long time. That he has expressed an interest to retire at the earliest time available after the budget's concluded, and before you is an employment agreement with Mr. Miller to assume those duties after July 1st. Happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Andrew? Any speaker cards on this item?
No, Mayor.
All right, then. Who would like to make a motion?
So moved.
And a second. All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Congratulations, Grady.
About
Do you want to say something?
It all started in
Council, I'm very, very pleased and honored to serve as your town manager. As many of you know, you live here, and you know that Fountain Hills is really the crown jewel of the valley. And to serve as the manager here is incredible. The council is very proactive, and I'm looking forward to serving you and working with you. The community is incredible, as you've seen with the number of volunteers and the people in the community who are very active. I'm looking forward to working with them. And we have a great staff. I've had the privilege of working with some great people, and I'm looking forward to continuing with that. My wife and I are moving here as well. That's going to be happening in the next month or so. So we'll be official Fountain Hillians real soon. I'd like to just introduce my wife Tammy and my daughter Amanda. They're here tonight, and I'm very proud that they could be here to be with me tonight. Thank you very much.
All right, congratulations, Grady. And I moved that up for Tammy's sake, not yours. You have to stay. All right, we'll go on to number 5, consideration of the request by the Public Art Committee to accept a donated bronze sculpture titled "So Good to See You" for placement in the Centennial Circle.
Mayor Kavanaugh, members of the council, the Community Services Director has a report regarding this request.
Bear with me 1 second. I can honestly say so far I haven't shown this to anybody who didn't like it, so I think you hear from the audience's reaction behind me. This particular piece is being donated by Richard and Doris Dale for placement in Centennial Circle. It is called "So Good to See You." It's valued at $6,000, and the artist is Joy Kroger Beckner. I also included in your packets a map of the location. If you haven't had an opportunity to walk down there and take a look, there are 6 what we call art nodes in that Centennial Circle. They were designed originally. Most of them have large pieces that are centered. 2 of the areas have smaller pieces, and this would be the second piece to go in that small area. So the circle then would, in essence, be balanced. So with that, I would be glad to answer any questions. The Mileses, both Jackie and Jerry, are here this evening as well, in case you have any questions of any of us.
Oh, we're very grateful for the Dales. This is their second piece donating to the town, I believe. They have another piece that's in the Centennial Circle. So we're certainly glad for their donation to the town. Any questions from council for Mark or the Art Committee? Any speaker cards, Janice?
No, Mayor.
All right, then can I get a motion to accept "So Good to See You"?
So moved. Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, thank you, Mark, and thank you, the Dales, for their great contribution for a second time to Fountain Hills, and thank you, Public Art Committee, for bringing this forward.
This is number 141.
Number 141, we were just told. Wow, that was another great milestone for us. Okay, we'll go on to, okay, nice round of applause. Consideration of accepting a recommendation for the Community Services Advisory Commission to extend the current lease with the Technology Learning Center through September 28th, 2015.
Mayor Kavanaugh, members of the council, a number of months ago, the Community Services Advisory Commission asked the staff to provide information regarding the existing arrangement with what had formerly been called the Senior Network and now is called the Technology Learning Center. We shared the information with them, and I shared it in your packet here, that for most of the time that the community center has been open, shortly after it did open, at the time, SeniorNet was moved into that particular area. At the time, until fairly recently, there was no fee involved in that utilization of that space. It has basically in the past been set aside and not usable by anybody else. Under the terms of the lease, they're the sole occupant, and the terms of the lease come out to about $2,100, a little under $2,100 a year. Joining me this evening is also Mr. Sherman Abrahamson. He is the Vice Chair of the Community Service Advisory Commission. Wanted to address the council. He also served as, and will continue to serve as, the work study chair of this particular group. He'll make a few comments, and I'll come back up again.
All right, thank you.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, Council. As Mark said, I'm Sherman Abrahamson, and I have the dubious distinction of being the vice chair of this commission. We had been approached recently by staff about use of space in the center, and there's a tremendous need to find some more space. And right now, we are faced with a situation where TLC, as it is described, has a 24/7 use of the space where they presently are. I'm not going to get into the details of their use. I'm just going to share with you two things. Number one, we have been portrayed as the bad guys because everyone is saying we're trying to throw them out. Well, there's nothing further from the truth than that. We are not trying to throw them out. All we are trying to do is to make the space available for multiple users and to have TLC continue to use the space as required, as needed, as reserved, but on the same economic basis as anybody else who might come to the center to say, I need to rent a piece of property for a night, for a week, whatever. That's available. We have provided them with 3 different options, all of which are functional. Now, our work-study group is not completed, has not finished. We anticipate meeting with the officials from TLC down the road this summer, and it is our recommendation from our commission that the lease be continued through, I guess, the end of September of this year, which gives us an opportunity, hopefully, to arrive at some amicable resolution. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Questions from council?
Mayor?
Councilman Magazine.
Yeah, I see in our packet that the fee is, I believe, $1,800 a year. Is that correct?
That was the request from the Technology Learning Center.
And what has it been in the past?
Just a little under $2,100.
$2,100.
Yes.
And if they were to pay the going rate for use of space, you have any idea what that would amount to?
Well, it depends on how much time is actually booked. The not-for-profit rate is $15 an hour. So it'd be based on how much time was actually booked. And that's the same with any group utilizing the space.
What I see in front of me, they're requesting to use the room for 3 consecutive weekdays from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. So we're talking, what, 8 hours a day for 3 days times the 15. Okay. Just want to get some feel for it.
Yeah, I should also mention the kind of the interest on the part of the commission was twofold. One is the lease expires the end of June, and so there was a desire to see if we could reach some kind of an agreement before that time. It became clear that we had made some progress, but there still was a way to go because there was not agreement on both sides. When we started meeting with the Mr. Craner, who's the coordinator of the Technology Learning Center, one of the things we had specifically asked was some options to have more versatility in the space. Currently, there are a number of computers in there that are hardwired in office space, which obviously doesn't make it available for any other users. It's not the kind of thing that you can, like we do in the other rooms, tear down and reset. So what we had approached them about doing and what he is considering is converting to more portable systems such as laptops and iPhones and iPads, that kind of technology. So there's space in the room to store it. They seem to be on board with that concept. We just need some more time to work out the details, and so that's why the recommendation from the commission. So that's what you have for consideration this evening.
Okay, thanks. And thank you, Mr. Abrahamson, for clearing up some of the misconceptions, because that was all the calls that I was getting, that we were shutting it down. And that's, I attended the commission meeting, and I knew that that was the farthest from the truth. So I'm glad that you're meeting and that you are negotiating. So what you are asking us to do is just extend the current lease while you're doing that.
Correct.
All right. Do we have any speaker cards, Janice?
Mayor, we received 7. 2 wish not to speak, but are in favor of the TLC program, and 5 wish to speak.
All right.
Ralph Kramer, followed by Jerry Palmer.
Madam Mayor and the council, my name is Ralph Krainer. I'm a resident of Fountain Hills. I've had a house here since '86. I've lived here full-time since 1991. I am the coordinator of the Technology Learning Center, and we certainly would appreciate you extending the terms of our agreement for the additional 3 months. And Sherm is correct. We haven't come to an agreement. We, as TLC, have expenses that we have to pay. if you want to look at it, we have been the arm of the town to provide computer learning. And so what we're really negotiating is how much we have to pay for the privilege to teach computer learning and computer classes at no cost to the town. With the numbers that are on board, at $15 an hour, TLC will not exist. And I can't say it any more clear. We cannot afford, and if you want to work the numbers, it's $18,000. So our rent goes from $2,100 to $18,000. Somewhere in between has got to be a better number, and that we're certainly willing to work with the town, but unless we can come up with an economic decision that makes it sense. We're investing in equipment, we're investing in paying our rent to serve as your arm to provide the same computer learning centers like Scottsdale has. But they own their own computers and they have their money figured out. You don't own computers. I don't think your budget's going to allow you to buy computers. And from what I hear, next year is going to be even worse. We're willing to invest on laptops. We're willing to provide rent, but we can't exist if we have to charge more to the students and they're not going to come. Then I can't pay the rent. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Mayor.
Councilman Magazine?
Sir? Sir? How many Fountain Hills residents participate or take advantage of this?
We had, well, just this year, since January 1st, we've conducted 722 student classes. So if somebody takes 4 classes, that's 4.
Well, that's student classes, but...
Oh, the number? Somewhere, I would guess that there's probably 300 on our mailing list that take classes. There are, and all of those join the activity center because that's the first thing we make our speech saying that we're an independent organization, and if you're here and you don't belong to the activity center, go get a card. There are probably close to 200 people, I'm guessing, come into that room and take a class and never do anything else.
And do they pay any kind of a fee in addition?
They pay for a class. It averages out to probably right around $15 for every 2-hour workshop.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Next, Janice?
Mr. Palmer?
Good evening. I'm Jerry Palmer, and I've
Fountain Hills resident?
one of those. Pardon?
Fountain Hills resident?
I own houses here, but I don't live here permanently. 7 months out of the year.
Okay, I'll just remind everybody, just so I don't have to stop you when you come up, just say your name and just if you're a resident. That's all.
Okay.
Thank you.
7 months.
Okay, that counts.
Oh, good. Thank you. I seen Sherm shaking his head there about $18,000 a year, but it doesn't take very long to figure the math out at $15 an hour, 8 hours a day. 3 days a week times 52, you can come up with the $18,000 pretty quick. And that's pretty stiff rent, in my opinion. And I just was told the other day if I want to continue and they don't reach any agreement with any less than $18,000 a year, that it's going to cost me around $45 each time I want to take a class, which is something I can't afford. I can afford the $10 or $15 a class, but I can't afford the $45. So I just wanted to make that clear, and I can't say how well these volunteers, how many hours they put in, and how well informed they are. They're unbelievable. I mean, you guys ought to take a class and find out. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Who's next?
Stan Connick, followed by Kathy Fisher.
Hi, Stan.
Hi. Mayor and council members, next thing I'm going to do is get hearing aids. But I just wanted to express my appreciation for the Technical Learning Center. It's been an invaluable opportunity for me to learn and grow. If you've ever asked your children anything about the computer, your phone, or your camera, you know how grateful I am to have a resource like the Technical Learning Center. So I just ask for your support.
All right, thank you. Next.
Kathy Fisher.
Madam Mayor and distinguished council members, thank you for the opportunity to appear before you tonight. My name is Kathy Fisher, and my husband Bert and I retired to Fountain Hills in 1998. We are full-time residents. We even survive your hot summers. I'm a volunteer with the Technology Learning Center, and I'm responsible for student registration, public relations, and also teach workshops. I became aware of TLC, formerly called SeniorNet, in 2005 when I needed help with a new digital camera. I signed up for a workshop and have thoroughly enjoyed the past 10 years being associated with TLC, both as a student and a volunteer. The services we provide to the residents and winter visitors are invaluable in keeping our students up to date in this ever-changing tech world. The TLC volunteers give freely of their time, and our students become secure in asking any question, even if it's, how do I turn on my computer, to how do I print an airline boarding pass? The workshops we offered are based upon what our students feel they need to learn. When a new device or software is put on the market, the TLC instructors have already prepared a class curriculum. The Wednesday morning Time for You sessions are very popular and well-attended. During this weekly 2-hour session, anyone can stop by the computer lab for assistance with computer or a technology question. There is no charge for this computer assistance. Where else in town is similar service offered? And if such a service would be available, the cost would be more than our students could afford. I looked up the definition of a community center. According to Webster's dictionary, it is a building or group of buildings for a community's educational, social, cultural, and recreational activities. The services TLC currently offer at the community center surely fit into that description. But if our rental agreement is increased to the hourly rate of $15, which is the current fee charged to HOAs and other groups, TLC's rent would increase from $2,000 per year to $18,000. And that is for fewer days access to the computer lab. That proposed agreement from $2,000 to $18,000 is an 800% increase. How would you like your mortgage lender to raise your monthly mortgage rate by 800%? TLC cannot continue to offer workshops at a reasonable cost with this unheard of rental increase. Some of the TLC volunteers feel the community center is being turned into a profit center. So my question is, do we tell our students that profit is more important than educating them to stay current with the latest technology? Or will TLC be allowed to keep our students' world accessible through workshops such as Skype, FaceTime, staying safe with online banking, and accessing medical records over the internet? It seems as if some of the people in charge of the community center are putting a higher value on bingo, ping pong, and card games than educational pursuits. I trust as elected officials you will arrive at a reasonable lease agreement that will keep TLC a viable resource for all Fountain Hills residents. Any loss of educational programs is a black mark against community leaders. I thank you for your attention this evening.
All right, thank you. Anyone else?
Jim Judge.
Madam Mayor, Town Council members, my name is Jim Judge. I live in Fountain Hills. To begin with, I serve on the Community Services Advisory Commission, and our commission considers the Learning Center as a very important part of the programming of the centers. There's no question about that. The only question I think that's arising here is a matter of space, and I'd like to talk a little bit about the space issue. We have over 1,200 members in the community center. Therefore, we have to serve the needs as best we can of all the people. The problem is we're running out of space. We are out of space. We've had to turn down requests for additional meeting space in the center. One that I really feel badly about is a diabetes support group has asked to have time, and the center was not able to grant that. And that's particularly timely because, as you know, the new dialysis treatment center is to be opened later this year. So the two go hand in hand. Another group, the caregiver support group, which I'm familiar with, also had requested additional meeting time and was not able to be granted because of space requirements. And there are several other groups that have asked and had to be turned down because of it. So that's the reason why the commission is saying we have some space issues. How can we resolve them? One of the things we looked at, and you can do all kinds of numbers, but if you look at the actual number of hours used in the Learning Center last year, it was 372 hours. They have the room reserved for them 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, 52 weeks a year. So that works out to about 18% of usage of the room in actual instruction. Now, obviously, there's preparation time. Instructors have to get prepared. They have to set up the machine. So, but as far as instruction time, and that's the way the rest of the rooms are evaluated in the center, for the last 2014, only 18% of the time was used for instruction. Now, if you drop that back to 3 days a week, which is what's being requested, that still is a usage at the 372 hours for last year, which, from what I've read in some earlier statements from the TLC, they expect the numbers of classes for the year would be about the same, or somewhere in the neighborhood of 180 to 200 classes a year. That still would be at 372 hours. That'd still be about 30% utilization of the room for the time. So I think we just need to understand that there are some issues here. No way, I think there's been some rumors gone out that we don't want them in the community center. Nothing could be farther than truth. It's an extremely important part of our programming. So my recommendation to the council is please vote in favor of extending the contract for 3 additional months, end of September. Let the commission and the work study group and Mr. Craner and the TLC group work together. We can find some solutions. We just need a little more time, I think, to put it together. Thank you for your time.
All right, thank you, Jim. Anyone else, Janice?
No, Mayor.
All right, council. Councilman Yates?
Thank you, Mayor. Mark, could I?
Mark, please.
Please. Sorry.
Yeah, that's-
Mark, how many square feet are they using? I know we're doing time, but how big is the actual space?
About 700 square feet.
And the reason I bring that up is we're at
Square footage cost.
Yeah, here, I'm in commercial real estate. We're asking them to go up to $26 a square foot, just apples to apples. I mean, that is just simply outrageous. But finding out where you fall in, just to share with you folks, and here's where public sector kind of mixes with private sector. There's some great space around Fountain Hills you could probably get for $5 a square foot. So basically with what you're paying right now, $200, in what's called a gross lease, meaning electricity would be included, there might be an opportunity for you to kind of move into the private sector and actually go take one of these storefronts for along these same lines. I only throw that out there and just another thing to consider. If you absolutely need to be in the community center, I'm a full supporter. I'm all ears, but I'm just sharing with you right now. We're kind of mixing apples with oranges in the sense that we're trying to bill hourly on something where it sounds like you guys need something a little bit more on a permanent basis. And I think there's an alternative for you if you go out to the private sector. Just food for thought. Thank you.
Okay.
Anything else?
Did you have?
Well, I would just add, we haven't made a proposal. We have come up with several different options, okay? And so when the comment is made that it's going to cost them $18,000, the choice of the hours, that's to book it again, as Mr. Judge suggested, from 8 o'clock in the morning till 4 o'clock in the evening, basically eliminated daytime usage for any other group. So if you block that time out, that's what it would cost. What we have also suggested as an alternative is look at blocking out the times for the classes, not all the rest of the time, simply booking the classes. That cost then would significantly be reduced. We're not in a position to pick and choose those hours for the TLC. That's something that they need to do. But that is one of the options that we did discuss.
Madam Mayor. Just as a follow-up to that, I'm just trying to give you one more discussion point, that for $200 a month, there are some tremendous opportunities out there, bigger space that you could literally control yourself 24/7, instead of trying to hammer something out that might not be a fit. It's just one more thing to consider is all I'm suggesting. Thanks, Mayor.
Okay. Councilman Porter.
Wow, what a great asset to the town. I like the idea that it's in the community center myself because of the business it could potentially drive to the center as far as maybe opening up their eyes to other programs. I desperately want to send my parents to these classes. But I think it could be, I mean, I think it's a valuable addition. I hope in the next 3 months, I hope it's enough time to come with, because it seems like you're kind of way over here and way over here. I hope it's enough time to do that. There's a lot of options to where you could even, it's a huge investment up front, but there's mobile carts that you can buy where it's your whole IT cart on this cart. I'm sure Mike knows all about it, where they don't have to be in the same room all the time. If the course that they have happens to have 2 enrollees, maybe put them in the tiniest room you have and roll their cart in, and that becomes their technology lab. But I think it's a valuable asset, as I'm sure everybody agrees, but thank you for your time tonight.
Councilman Magazine?
Yeah, I concur. I think it is a valuable asset. I'm sure it's been an asset to all of the people who have taken advantage of it. Along the same lines as where Councilman Yates has been going, and this may be out of the box, but I'm wondering if there were any space that could be donated. For example, we own the Kiwanis building. I have no idea what the Kiwanis use or when they use it. We have an empty elementary school. It might be worth just looking around to see if there's somebody who could donate the space. Now, you may have already done that. I guess personally I don't see the tremendous value of being in the community center. These are people who select themselves to go to a class and learn and so on. You can go anywhere. So I would urge that at least take a look around and see if there's any possibility of donated space. But I think also renting space at the kinds of rates that Councilman Yates suggests may make a lot of sense as well.
Anybody else? Councilman Hanson?
I think it's a really good idea to give this group, who already has put a lot of time and effort into it and a lot of thought, to continue their discussion. And that being said, I'd like to make a motion.
All right, thank you. Go ahead.
Okay. Move to accept the recommendation from the Community Services Advisory Commission to extend the current lease with the Technology Learning Center through September 28th, 2015. And I'm sure they'll be able to come up with something that'll work for everybody.
Second.
All right, any further discussion? All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Mayor 7-0.
All right, there we go. All right, we'll give a second to everybody who has little stickers on. We have one staff report for item number 7 and 8, and I will remind the public to submit speaker cards if you want to comment during the public hearing section. And right now, I will open the public hearing of ordinance 15-06, the application of Sixth Street Enterprise Incorporated, doing business as Nature's Arizona Medicines, for an amendment to section 2403B of the Fountain Hills zoning ordinance. If adopted, the proposal would amend the zoning ordinance by extending the permitted operating hours of a medical marijuana dispensary to allow operation between the hours of 8 a.m. and 10 p.m. daily. Ken?
Mayor Kavanaugh, members of the council, again, our senior planner has a report regarding the zoning proposal.
Thank you, Bob.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. Mark Steinmetz is the owner of Nature's Arizona Medicines, the medical marijuana dispensary. It's located at 16913 East Enterprise Drive. The marijuana dispensary has been open and in operation for a bit over 2 years now. Dispensary hours of operation are currently only permitted by the ordinance to be between 8 a.m. and 7 p.m. Monday through Friday, and 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. on Saturdays. The applicant is requesting that Section 2403B of the zoning ordinance be amended to allow the marijuana dispensary to have operating hours between 8 a.m. and 10 p.m. daily. The dispensary is currently in conformance with the zoning ordinance. It's also in compliance with the additional stipulations of their site approval, which included lighting, security cameras, guards, extra signage, and also no incidents at this site have been reported by MCSO. The applicant has provided a lengthy narrative in which he outlines his reasons for the request. The narrative is in your packets. Primary reasons listed were the limited hours inhibit the dispensary's ability to compete with dispensaries in other towns. Limited hours are inconvenient to customers who work. In their opinion, limited hours are discriminatory, and that the dispensary also helps reduce illegal drug use in town. The rules or hours of operation established are well within the guidelines established under state law. There is no requirement that the ordinance be changed. This is really a public policy decision that the council is asked to decide on, whether or not amending this ordinance and extending the hours of operation is in the best interest of Fountain Hills. If you support the request, council should approve it. If you don't support the request, then council should deny the request. Planning and Zoning Commission held a meeting on April 23rd, and they voted 6-1 to forward a recommendation to deny the request. As this is a policy decision, staff will respectively withhold the recommendation. Thank you, and that ends my report. The applicant is present, and he has indicated that he would also like to make a report.
All right, thank you, Bob. And that concludes our presentation? There's no slide presentation for us? This is his?
Correct.
Okay. All right, thank you. All right, the applicant, you have a presentation?
Thank you, Mayor, Council. My name is Mark Steinmetz, and as Bob indicated, I'm the Arizona Department of Health Services licensed medical marijuana operator. It's a nonprofit corporation, so there really are no owners, but I'm one of the 4 board members and the manager. I'm before the town council this evening once again to request extended hours, as Bob mentioned. We want to be treated much like other pharmacies, as this is a medical facility. We're looking for hours consistent with state law, which is 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. Monday through Friday, but also with the operating hours of Walgreens and CVS, which are open primarily 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. Monday through Friday. And I think the pharmacy hours are actually 9 to 6 on Saturday and 10 to 6 on Sunday. We received a year ago planning and zoning approval to operate 8 a.m. to 9 p.m. However, we were not granted those hours at the town council a year ago, as some of you probably recall. My attorney, Mel McDonald, will speak to you tonight about why he feels this position is a lose-lose for patients and the greater community of Fountain Hills, because it's abundantly clear that there are some that don't understand the program. We hope that we can shed some light on what the medical marijuana program is, how it works, how it affects patients, and the benefits of the community. To talk about the medical side, I have brought with me tonight a naturopathic physician, Dr. Carol Jameson, who will explain the medical science behind medical marijuana. And Dr. Jameson has practiced here in Fountain Hills for the past 11 years and is pretty well known in the community. In the past, we've all agreed that we don't need to have a conversation about medical cannabis. But at the end of the day, we also must admit to ourselves and one another that we're making decisions tonight about this program under a stigma that still surrounds this program today. Decisions are about to be made that affect hundreds of Fountain Hills residents and hundreds more that live in adjacent and neighboring communities. Without a brief presentation on the factually based data, these decisions will be made in a vacuum without even the most basic knowledge about this alternative medicine. After our presentation, we'd like to, we'll all be subjected to comments from the community, some in support, others certainly opposed. These folks come to you with a very worthy goal in their hearts, those opposed, that is, to protect our children, a goal I also share. I will show you both local and national data and facts that clearly illustrate how the benefits of this government-regulated medical program benefits our children, reducing access to kids and lowering their marijuana use, which is very measurable and has in fact been measured. Let's shed the prejudice and ignorance surrounding the program and shine a light on the facts. And I would like to start a presentation, but first introduce my attorney, a local prominent attorney, A. Melvin McDonald. Mel McDonald was appointed by former President Ronald Reagan as a U.S. attorney, one of a few U.S. attorneys who met regularly with U.S. Attorney General William French Smith, and on occasion with President Reagan himself. He would meet in Washington every other month to discuss national policy in 94 of the 95 districts throughout the United States. At that time, drugs was the #1 problem in America, and it was an issue he's very well prepared to discuss. He served with one of those 15 U.S. attorneys along with Rudy Giuliani and Frank Keating, who later became governor of Oklahoma. Mr. McDonald joined Jones, Skelton, and Hakuli as a partner in 1985, a firm that serves law enforcement agencies throughout the U.S. Mr. McDonald practices in the areas of criminal defense and major civil litigation. Prior to this time, as a former United States attorney in the District of Arizona, Mel was the former Superior Court judge for Maricopa County and has taught criminal justice at ASU. Mr. McDonald received both his undergrad and law degree from University of Utah and is admitted to practice in Arizona state and federal courts. Today, Mel would like to share his insight into our state-regulated medical program and to discuss the law as it affects this program today.
Mayor Kavanaugh and members of the council, I'm honored to be here in your beautiful town. As was noted in the introduction, I served on the bench of Maricopa County Superior Court for 7 years. During my tenure as United States Attorney, one of your residents in Fountain Hills, Sheriff Arpaio, was heading the DEA. We worked very, very closely on drug policies. As a member of the Attorney General's Advisory Committee, we set national policy. Until 1997, I was probably one of the most vocal opponents of drug distribution in the state of Arizona. I had led the charge through the 1980s. On August 8, 1997, my stepson was hit by a car. He suffered debilitating brain injury. In 2003, part of his brain was removed. The problem was that he developed epileptic seizures, and those seizures took away his appetite to eat, and he would sometimes go days without eating, going from 180 pounds to 119 pounds. He would sometimes, when his shirt was off, would look like some of the pictures that you would see from World War II from the concentration camps. In about 2005 or 2006, I noticed that he was starting to eat meals again. There was a little secret in our house. A neighbor across the street had started giving him marijuana, saying that he felt it would help him. This was the quandary that developed in the McDonald home. I would tell my wife that if that stuff is ever caught in my home, because I've been a United States attorney, we're going to take the headlines. You'll have a free lawyer, but I cannot be a part of this. She said, I've got to do this to save my son. One of the great blessings in our lives occurred in 2010 when the referendum came about, a very narrow vote.
In 2012, it's such a small world, the mayor's husband had proposed a vote in the legislature to abolish the referendum of 2010. I came home one day and saw my wife sobbing on the floor, incoherent with anxiety that she didn't want to go back to the other life. She wanted her son to be able to have some dignity in getting his medication. Ladies and gentlemen of this town council, I will tell you that my son had some of the most brilliant brain surgeons in the world. Dr. Donald Shields from UCLA, members of Barrow, people in Mayo Clinic. What we learned from this, there were 30 different kinds of medications that they would give him to control the seizures. None of them worked except marijuana. In 2012, I made a commitment that I would come out and I would support this program. One of the issues that you're considering tonight is one of the issues dear to my heart. When the program was implemented, I remember my wife having to drive from Gilbert to Glendale every time she needed to get his medication. Medical marijuana is not like many of the pills. They don't sit for a period of time. It was one of the most frustrating prospects that she had. And there was also this stigma, this feeling that when she would pull up to get his medication, now he can't drive, and many of the patients of medical marijuana cannot drive. One of the great needs in the program is to make the product available. As I looked at the rules of this town and some of the cases that I have actually gone and I've testified in the Superior Court on some of these issues, the standard is always reasonableness. Are the regulations and rules of the town reasonable? I will tell you that my wife happens to be chairman of the board of Mesa East Marijuana Dispensary. Mark is a competitor, but my commitment is so strong because what it does, their hours there, 21 hours on the weekend versus Mark's 5 hours on the weekend. I would plead with the members of this board that it is not fair and it is not right. If for no other reason, for the patients, like my son, for some of the others, make the product available. During the time I've been working in this field, Don Tucker, who used to be the agent in charge of the Secret Service, later U.S. Marshal, would thoroughly look at many of the security operations. The medical marijuana dispensary in Fountain Hills is as safe, if not far safer, than the security system in any bank. What I'm asking you today, in fairness to patients, in fairness to Mark, in fairness to the town of Fountain Hills from the benefits, the tax benefits that would come from that. The rules of this state scrupulously protect this product from going into the hands of young people. It is for patients. The average age is people in the 40s. I've stood there and watched people very sick with this product. I had a sister die of cancer last year that her greatest relief did not come from the medications that they were giving her, but from the cannabis product that was provided to her. I would urge you as members of this council to give him this zoning variance. Give the people that come here from other communities the opportunity. I will tell you, Mark has some unique strains with his product that are uniquely helpful. Marijuana just isn't the same for anybody. You can scientifically create different strains. And I will tell you from my experience, from people that have called me, that it is a phenomenal answer to many of the problems in society. Thank you.
We have a brief PowerPoint presentation that Dr. Jameson and I would like to present. I can bring it up on the screen. just realizing it's not a touch screen. Okay, here we go. Right. All right, very good. There are 99 dispensary licenses issued. I think there were 88 open last I counted. We opened in July of 2013. Most opened late in the year, 2012. The first one opened in December, and there are still a few opening even now. We have a location in Phoenix as well as one in Fountain Hills. At this point, I'd like to bring up Dr. Carol Jameson to talk a little bit about the history of medical cannabis.
Thank you, Mark. Good evening. Thank you, Mayor and council members, for listening to us, taking this time to get a little bit of information, because I feel like we can't make good decisions without having all the information. I feel like my job here tonight is to help you answer the question, why is marijuana a medicine? So I'm going to do that as fast as I can, because that is, decades of research. So I'm a naturopathic physician. I've been in town. I grew up in Fountain Hills, actually. I went to high school here. I have children. I have a vested interest in seeing that this gets into the hands of people that really need it. And I didn't advertise that I was a certifying physician. I worked 10 years to get a good reputation as not a quack naturopath. And I spoke with some of the other physicians in town, and they said, it's very conservative here. You might not want to do it. Patients were asking me, they said, I'm allergic to medication. I can't take opiates. I have kidney failure from Tylenol. What are my options? So I became educated and got certified. What I didn't expect is to learn how much benefit it gives to patients, and they call me from their cars crying, saying, I'm in so much pain, I have no quality of life. Will this work for me? I can confidently say, I talk to so many people now that I think it will, and if it doesn't work for you, you're not committed forever. It just takes some time for you to learn how to use the product, and the people at the dispensary are excellent at educating patients how to do that. So we'll quickly get into 2 minutes of ancient history, because you have to look back in time before we can look forward and make decisions about the future. So cannabis is a flowering plant that's been well documented to have been on this earth for over 4,000 years. It has served many purposes in hemp. The fiber components of cannabis has been long used in paper and clothing production. The seeds and oils have been used medicinally in civilizations found in Europe and China for thousands of years. In 1823, Queen Victoria's personal physician, Sir Russell Reynolds, prescribed cannabis for her menstrual cramps. He wrote in the first issue of the journal, the Lancet Journal, which is still a medical publication out today, that when pure and administered carefully, it is one of the most valuable medicines we possess. And I want you to keep that in mind. Pure and purposefully, safely used, and that's what we're going for. Medical cannabis was part of the American pharmacopoeia until 1942. It actually has already been used in this country as a medicine until certain political changes came about, and Mark will educate you about those a little bit. And there were many articles, over 100 different articles published supporting the medical research. And more information is coming out. We'll give you a few more examples down the road here.
I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this for the sake of time, but you can go to YouTube and look up Should Grandma Smoke Pot? It's a funny name, but it's a serious documentary about particularly senior Americans and their use of this potential alternative medical product. It also gets into some of the political history. People have often asked, well, how did this natural herb become so villainized? What happened in our American history that caused this to happen? Well, it didn't happen accidentally. I think there's a good reason why the Federal Communications Commission now is very careful about mergers and acquisitions as it relates to large media corporations. At a time when this policy was formed, William Randolph Hearst owned almost every major, newspaper in every city. I mean, there were several newspapers in every city at that time, but he had a major newspaper in almost every major market in America, and he also had several national magazines. He was this is before radio, television, obviously, internet. He
linked with some industrial lobbyists. The paper industry, William Randolph Hearst is huge in paper, in addition to vertical integration along with his publications. And also DuPont was coming out with nylon rope. They didn't want hemp. Big Pharma and alcohol was all developing very quickly. And to make a long story short, his marketing team developed an amazing campaign that bought into racism at the time, and it was called Reefer Madness. And it was co-opted by our government and shown in movie reels before major films, which was a way that people got their news back then. My mother, who's turning 90 next month, still remembers very clearly seeing the Reefer Madness episodes. I had to talk with her. I had to have a couple long talks with her before I ever got into this business. But it stuck. It made a difference. Medical research developments have come a long way since then. The FDA has now been approving many studies. For a long time they wouldn't. Since 2009, there's many, many studies that have been approved. NIDA, which was a roadblock, has lifted that. I don't know if you saw CNN's documentary by Sanjay Gupta, Weeds 1, 2, and 3. But in Weeds 1, Sanjay Gupta interviewed the head of the University of Mississippi's cannabis growing farm. They have a federal contract to grow it. There weren't many plants growing. In Weeds 3, just recently, the fields are full. There are so many FDA studies that have been approved. The federal government has a hard time keeping up with the demand. Matter of fact, I filled out a request for proposal with the DEA to grow cannabis in some of our facilities for federal FDA use. Banking directives have come down from Congress. The Cole Memorandum that came out last August was earth-shattering. It basically defunded the DEA from coming after state-regulated programs. There have been recent developments within the state on oils and tinctures and the use of marijuana concentrates, specifically as it relates to kids and CBD products that can eliminate epileptic seizures. Hundreds of families have moved to Colorado to access this strain called Charlotte's Web, and we have a number of them being developed in this state that are low in the psychoactive THC but very high in the CBD that will eliminate seizures in children. NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell, as much as they've suspended players for the use of marijuana, said the league is following the work of an Israeli researcher who's exploring cannabis as a potential treatment for traumatic brain injury. Nobel laureate Julius Axelrod has obtained a patent on the drug for its anti-inflammatory and neuroprotective properties. There's a disparity, among access for cardholders right now. Currently, the hours of Nature's Medicines in Fountain Hills is 9 a.m. to 7 p.m. Excuse me, somehow this thing skipped ahead about 25 slides. Don't know how that happened. There we go. Currently, there are marijuana laws in about in 50 states. 27 states in the District of Columbia have now either legalized or decriminalized marijuana. The support of medical use of marijuana is sweeping the country. About 80%, as you can see by the map, support the use of marijuana. That's also consistent with a recent New England Journal of Medicine survey of MDs who believed that cannabis had use for a number of illnesses, including cancer, MS, and some other maladies. Medical cannabis is currently legal in use in a number of developed countries throughout the world, and we'll spend a lot of time on this. It's also been decriminalized in many, many other countries, even such democracies as Russia. Proposition 203 became law in 2010. That's a significant year because I'm going to show you some data in a moment that relates to teen use before the AMMA came along and then after the dispensaries opened in 2013. Currently, the slide says 68,000 patients. I just found some new data yesterday that was published by the Department of Health. It's now up to 72,000 patients. This is a slide that depicts data from the Centers for Disease Control. They do something called the Youth Health Assessment Risk Survey every year, and most states participate, not every year, but at least every other year. And as you can see, when the AMMA vote passed in 2010, we showed data from 2009 and then showed data from 2013. You can see that current use has gone down slightly, and it certainly hasn't gone up. The number of children that have tried marijuana by age 13 has gone down significantly. Actually, it's about 17%. This is, again, in the state of Arizona. The next slide actually looks at this trend across the country. Again, there are 27 states now with the medicinal marijuana laws, and it's really been part of the solution, not part of the problem. Current use is falling, and those trying it before age 13 has dropped significantly.
What has happened to other drugs, you might say? Well, cocaine has gone down significantly. Inhalants has been reduced significantly in meth. The theory behind this is that there's nothing gateway in itself about marijuana. There's nothing about using the product that makes you want to go out and, and do meth or something. But there is something gateway about the distribution system of the black market. And whenever you force a legitimate medical need to have to access the black market for medicine, you're just subsidizing the black market. That's not good public policy. And as you can see, almost all of the drug use has gone down. Heroin's gone up. That's an entirely different matter that Carol will address.
Okay, in the United States, severe and chronic pain is the most common qualifying condition for medical marijuana. In Arizona, 70% of the people who enter into the program fall under the category for chronic pain. And I will show you at the end what it takes to get in the program. It's pretty rigid. The paperwork for me is significant, and it takes quite a bit of time. As you can imagine, it's a government program. Studies show the drug is especially effective against neuropathic pain. So if you've ever had neuralgia, neuropathy in your feet, and that constant tingling, numbness, aching pain, patients say, I can't sleep, I can't walk, I can't sit too long, any kind of relief is great. So it helps with nerve damage. Marijuana is less habit-forming than opiate drugs, in fact. So the question is it addictive? There is a small addiction component. It's at less than 9%, where opiate medications are up 25%. 25% of people who are put on opiates prescribed 3 times a day. It usually happens in the hospital. They go on a regime. By the time they get out, they have a physical addiction. They didn't ever intend to get addicted. They didn't think they were mentally or emotionally addicted, but they try to go off of it, and they go through extreme withdrawals, shakes, nausea, vomiting, constipation, diarrhea. It's an extremely painful situation. If you go through withdrawal from marijuana, you decide, I'd like to not use it anymore. And I've had plenty of patients, do this because they're enter back into the workforce or whatever, and they have to do drug testing. So it's like a caffeine addiction. They might get a headache and they might get a little irritable. It's certainly different than an opiate withdrawal. And currently, there's no fatality to marijuana. It doesn't affect the respiratory center in the brain, whereas opiates kill people because it shuts down your breathing. You can overdose on cannabis. I don't suggest it, but you won't die. You might feel like you're going to die because there are some side effects to that. But 16,000 people die annually from prescription medications being prescribed and taken appropriately because it's just too much. And in Arizona, that's about 1,000 people every year die from prescription medication. That includes Tylenol and aspirin. Those sort of things have higher fatality than cannabis. So what do you have to do to be a qualifying patient? So what they did was took the components of cannabis, how it affected the body, and then decided people with these conditions could get relief. And so that's how we'll decide what a qualifying condition is. So severe and chronic pain, it works as an analgesic or an anti-inflammatory. If you have nausea, cannabis works as an appetite stimulant. If you have cancer, it also calms down nausea and can help with eating. If you've ever had a loved one or yourself gone through chemotherapy, you don't feel like eating, and keeping up your nutrition is vital to survival. Crohn's disease, it helps with the cramping, it calms the irritable bowel, it helps with the depression that comes with all of those diseases. AIDS, HIV, it actually works on the cells, the T cells and B cells. We'll talk about that a little bit. And it helps with fatigue, appetite, and depression, and that's the same with hepatitis C. For cachexia and wasting syndrome, it helps with weight gain, muscle spasms. It can be immediate muscle spasm relief. I have some patients that just come, they pay the whole fee, go through the whole process every year just to have access to the cream. They don't ingest it at all, they're just using it topically, and they say it is amazing for the spasming in my back. It helps with glaucoma by reducing pain and pressure, multiple sclerosis, again with spasms, pain relief, and sleep, and Alzheimer's. It has a neuroprotective component and helps calm, it's only for agitated Alzheimer's right now, so it calms the person down so they are functional, they can get to the bathroom and get food in with help without being doped out and not be able to work with the person that's caregiving. Okay, here's a patient survey. They asked people who are using medical marijuana, how does it help you? What are you actually getting relief with? And as you can see, 37.8% said chronic pain. Then under that was insomnia. You should know insomnia is not a qualifying condition here in Arizona. Neither is anxiety or depression. However, it does help with that, and a lot of patients want to come and be certified under that, and I have to turn them away. Stress, it helps with that, anxiety, depression, and as you can see, headaches, nausea, PTSD, which has newly, just this year, been added on as a qualifying condition, and muscle spasms. Okay, so take a second with me, dive into a little bit more of the human anatomy. I will try not to bore you to tears, but I think this is important to understand. How is this a medicine? I asked myself the same question, I had to know. So most pharmaceutical agents work by going into your body, stopping a process. They cut off the enzyme pathway. It's like the army going in and blowing up the road, or digging a trench, or just holding commerce. They have to do this and counteract what your body knows how to do to heal, to stop the pain, and it can be very effective. If you're in a life-critical situation in the ER, you want morphine. I'm all for that. But there are times in daily living where that's not appropriate. So we naturally have our own receptors that are directed by stimulus from plants in our environment. There are 3. You could probably think of them without even trying too hard. Nicotine. Our body's lined with nicotinic receptors, and we know the tobacco plant. Opiate receptors. We have opiate receptors throughout our body, including in the central nervous system, and so we have opiate medications. And then we actually have cannabis receptors. It's called the endocannabinoid system. The benefit of using receptors we already have is that we're not trying to stop a process. We're using a medication or a plant that's telling your body, please do what you already know how to do. Please reduce inflammation. Please reduce pain, and it knows how to do that. So the humans have opioid receptors that respond to the opium, morphine, oxycodone, Dilaudid. You've probably heard of all those things before. The problem is, like I've mentioned, it shuts down respiratory centers. It's very addictive, and well, it's been used for thousands of years, so there's a huge potential for abuse with the opioids. Similarly, the humans have the cannabinoid receptors. They are found throughout the body in the brain and through the whole nervous system, and there's a role in appetite, pain sensation, mood, and memory. Okay, in 1980, they discovered CB1 receptor. This is found in your brain, central nervous system, lungs, and liver. 1990, more research, they found a CB2 receptor, found in the immune system, blood stem cells, beta cells, natural killer cells, and T cells. If you know anything about HIV or leukemia, lymphoma, these are important cells that we want functioning. Then they cleverly discovered non-CB1 and non-CB2 receptors. These are also stimulated by cannabis, and they regulate blood pressure and inflammation. So activating this center it has a lot of benefits by modulating the immune system. It has cellular protection, neuroprotective effects because it's actually an antioxidant. It regulates body temperature and much more. So are there negative effects? Of course there are. Everything, you can kill yourself over drinking water, and I tell patients that. But the negative effects with cannabis come in large doses. It's all about the dosing. What medical marijuana is very different than recreational use. My patients say, they sit down in the chair, they say, I don't want to get high and I don't want to smoke. And I say, that's great because I don't want you to do any of those things. Patients tell me if they're using an edible, there's a gummy bear. They tell me, I cut it in 3. A gummy bear this big, they cut in 3 and take once a day. That's medical marijuana. If they're using an inhalant in the e-cigarette form, I have a full-grown male patient. He says 1.5 puffs all day. That's the dose. Recreational users can be upwards of 30 puffs a day, 30 more, completely different use. So again, we'd just like to stress that there's no fatality with it, though. And if people overdose, they certainly feel like they're going to die. I tell them you might get very nauseous, you might have coordination issues, and you're going to want to stay in bed. It will wear off, and you will feel miserable, so really be careful about how much you use. And in some extreme cases.
Councilman Magazine?
I apologize.
Sure.
You obviously got a great education at Fountain Hills High School.
Thank
I suspect you may have gone beyond that. I'm listening carefully, and I sit here wondering how this is all connected to the issue before us, which is ours.
Yeah, it's a good question. The question that the hours, as it was presented to me, was that the belief was this wasn't a medical tool, and that because you don't believe it's a medicine, you don't feel it deserves the respect of a pharmacy that's also dispensing medicines. So I was asked to come and just educate you on why it's a medicine. And I'm almost done. I know it's only nerdies like me get excited about these sort of details. Does that answer your question? Thank you. Okay, if you've heard of Dr. Sanjay Gupta, he's the chief CNN medical correspondent. He was completely against marijuana as a medicine when it first came out. Then he decided that he really hadn't gotten a good idea on the research, and he did his own research and looked deeper. He's done a full 180 and is a huge supporter of the program, and he speaks out vocally in support of it. Okay, here's just a few ideas of the research. If you type in cannabis as medicine PubMed, you'll pull up over 20,000 studies. We're not going to go over those. For MS, there's studies that show it effectively works for pain and spasms. The official position from the American College of Physicians was that this looks like a medicine we should keep researching. And then marijuana and mortality, the summary was it's non-lethal and not fatal.
Mike, I may need your help. Here we go.
Hi there, my name is Sue Sisley. I'm a physician here in Scottsdale, Arizona, where I've lived now over 30 years. I am a proud taxpayer in the city of Fountain Hills. We own 2 parcels of land out there. And I'm also the principal investigator on a very crucial FDA-approved marijuana research study. My study is an FDA-approved randomized controlled trial looking at whole plant marijuana for the treatment of military veterans with PTSD. And I'm here talking with you on video because I have the honor of presenting the keynote address here in Florida, where I am going to be educating physicians from around the world about the scientific literature available looking at marijuana as medicine. And I wanted to share some of my insights with you tonight so that you can reconsider the decision about this facility's business hours. A review of the available scientific literature identifies over 100 controlled studies worldwide involving thousands of patients evaluating the safety and efficacy of both marijuana and individual phytocannabinoids. By contrast, most FDA-approved pharmaceuticals are approved based only on 2 pivotal trials, right? A phase 2 FDA trial and phase 3, and then suddenly the drug is on the market. And yet raw marijuana has had over 100 controlled trials published in peer-reviewed medical journals. So these human studies provide consistent evidence that marijuana, the plant, and its variety of compounds offer effective relief for the treatment of a wide range of conditions such as painful neuropathy, Crohn's disease and other GI disorders, severe nausea and cachexia, wasting syndrome, multiple sclerosis, and seizure disorders such as epilepsy. Over the past decade, the Center for Medicinal Cannabis Research at the University of California has conducted numerous FDA-approved gold standard clinical trials assessing marijuana's medicinal utility. And in every study conducted by that center, subjects using whole plant cannabis showed a statistically significant medical benefit. Now, it's fascinating to read the words of Dr. Igor Grant. Dr. Grant is the director of that center, the Center for Research, and he said, quote, "I kind of expected well, we were going to have a few studies that say yes and a few studies that will say no, and then at the end of the day, we'll continue arguing. But the program's director, Dr. Grant, said, but in every single case, the studies showed benefit. A recent review of these studies was published in this medical journal called Open Neurology, another peer-reviewed medical journal, and it concluded, quote, both based on evidence currently available for Schedule I classification, it is not tenable to put marijuana in Schedule I. It is not accurate that marijuana has no medical value, and nor that information on safety is lacking. Now, Dr. Sanjay Gupta, who's a renowned neurosurgeon from Emory and is also CNN's chief medical correspondent, he explained how he mistakenly bought into certain government propaganda surrounding marijuana. But through continued research and his own experience filming the documentary series Weeds, he completely changed his mind on this plant and its efficacy. He said, quote, I mistakenly believed the DEA. When the Drug Enforcement Agency listed marijuana as Schedule I substance he assumed because of sound scientific proof. He said, surely they must have quality reasoning as to why marijuana is in the category of the most dangerous.
We're very far into this presentation, and I've certainly allowed you to have a lot more time than is usually allowed.
I can conclude this.
And it seems that you're just going over the exact same thing that we saw in the many, many slides that you presented. There are several people here who would also like to speak, so they've waited quite a long, and I'd like to let the public
Yeah, I
come up.
conclude. I just have a couple more slides and I'm done.
Okay.
Thank you. There are steps to go through for a qualifying card. We'll skip some of this, but it's a rigorous test. And we've talked about some of the qualifying conditions and so forth. But I'll get to the bottom line. There is an access to medicines issue in Fountain Hills. I'll just compare it to Maricopa County on this slide. This shows Walgreens and CVS in Fountain Hills as opposed to Maricopa County, and dispensary hours in Fountain Hills as compared to Maricopa County. As you can see, access to medicine in general is more limited here in every case. Marijuana has been brought up that why can't you just stock up on it? Why do people have to have access on Saturday or Sunday? Why is that necessary? Well, because it's not like buying a bottle of aspirin. It doesn't just sit well in your medicine cabinet until you need it. It dries up. The chemical compounds that are found in trichomes are little oil beads, and they evaporate. Long story short, it doesn't last very long. And a lot of patients don't need it every day. They need it when they have the spasms, when they have the issues, and then they have to go buy it because if they had some from a month ago, it's probably bad. And humidors are very expensive. Anybody who's been a cigar owner knows how difficult it is to keep cigars here. I gave mine to my pastor when he retired next door. The disparity of access is a problem, and it's got consequences. For us, I don't know if you know this, but dispensaries are subject to a federal taxation called 280E. If you're not familiar with it, I suggest you Google it for the sake of time. But the long story short is we pay an effective tax rate federally of about 65 to 70%. And the difficulty is if you're at a break even, not all of your business deductions are deductible. You have to back out some of the business deductions that a normal business would take. So you can be in a situation when you're breaking even and actually having to write a check to the federal government. Not a situation that's sustainable for any length of time. That's where we're at now. When I came before you a year ago, we were losing lots of money. We're about break even, but after you back out the 280E deduction issues, we're back to being in the red. We were looking for, we generate about $65,000, I'm estimating, in sales tax for the town. It could be more. This doesn't have to be a lose-lose scenario. There are legal remedies that I don't want to pursue. I don't want to see the town spending its money that way. I don't want to spend my money that way. The current hours, I was always the understanding we could only be open at 9. If it's 8, that's terrific. But it's the evening hours generally and the weekends when people are looking to access medicine. The current average for Maricopa County ADHS licensed dispensaries is 64.2 hours in a week, or about 9.2 a day. We requested 8 to 10 hours, pretty consistent with the weekday hours of your Walgreens and so forth, and your CVS's. I am willing to propose a compromise. to something more just, consistent in the hours that gives people access every day of the week. I prefer, 9 to 9 or even 8 to 9, but, for the sake of getting something done, I would be willing to accept 9 to 7, as long as it's Monday through Sunday, as long as the hours are consistent, because people can't remember when you're open from one day to the next. So, and that's my presentation. In conclusion, there are some information pieces I handed out earlier. The jurisdiction survey talks about how we compare to other communities, and you'll note that Phoenix is now extending many hours to 10 o'clock. There have been 3 dispensaries in the last couple of months that have been extended to 10. Mesa's 9. Maricopa County and Surprise is unrestricted. Virtually all of them, except one community, allow weekend hours. Thank you.
Janice, can we get to our speaker cards right now? The people have been waiting quite a long time to
Edward
come up.
Juder, followed by Jennifer Harwood.
Can you repeat that first name again? First one?
Edward Juder.
Edward Judah. Name and town you live in.
It's actually Edward Judice, and I live here
Excuse
in
me?
Edward Judice,
Mhm.
and I live here in Fountain Hills.
Okay.
And I am in favor of extending the hours for the dispensary. The state regulations allow for usage hours to go up to 10 p.m. And one of the things that I've seen here in Fountain Hills is that sometimes things aren't as accessible. And one of the most important parts that Mr. Steinmetz brought up that I would like to reiterate is that this is a medicine that patients need. It is limited in access not only by its physical properties, but by state law. There are limits on how much patients can purchase at any one time and limits on the time frames they can purchase it in. And additionally, there are financial limitations that keep patients from stocking up because these medicines are not covered by insurance. So whatever people are spending on it is coming out of their own pockets. The end result is that many patients put off buying until they absolutely need the medication. There are some people who use it as a maintenance medication. There are other people who use it as needed. And having that ability to access it at later hours in the evening is of critical importance. Additionally, Fountain Hills is not exactly in the center of Phoenix. It does take some time to get home. I know that there are many evenings where I work till 6 o'clock and it takes 45 minutes to get back here to Fountain Hills. So having additional evening hours of access and additional weekend access is also very important to patients who are seeking this medication. And, on a personal note, my mom died of lung cancer, and she spent several years wasting away, and because she did not have access to something like medical marijuana. This was a number of years ago. But I've seen a number of friends who are medical marijuana patients who have serious medical conditions for whom this is an absolute godsend to them. And doing something as minor as providing them with the extra access and an easier time to get the medication that they need is not only good public policy, but just good humanity. And in final closing, the issues and ideas of marijuana as a public issue are frankly quite unsettled at this point. But one thing that I do know is that the existence of a medical marijuana dispensary means that that medication is going to the right people who do need it, who have been vetted by the state and by doctors, and is not going into the general public. So it's really an idea of increased legal access means that there is less opportunity for the black market to move into Fountain Hills and find a customer base. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Next.
Jennifer Harwood.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. My name is Jennifer Harwood, and I'm a resident in Scottsdale. I've been living in Scottsdale for about 5 years. I'm originally from Chicago. I'm attending ASU School of Social Work, getting my master's in social work. Just completed my first year. I also am a patient service provider at Nature's AZ Medicines in Fountain Hills. I've been working there since November of last year. And we have a small staff. It's about half a dozen people. And we serve patients from all over the state. They come from Payson, Apache Junction, all over to just the Fountain Hills location specifically, because they know they're going to get a level of service there, a quality product. And I think extended hours would benefit the patient population. Social work has taught me that my opinion does not matter when you serve a population. The needs of that population are the only thing that really is on the mind. And if they need to come in the evening or the weekends, I'd be happy to provide them with the information that they need to feel comfortable in the program. I think that's really what the goal is for me, is to provide them with the information that they need to feel confident and comfortable. We serve all kinds of illnesses, cancer. I personally have been dealing with ulcerative colitis for 15 years, and I've been in the program since 2013. I was able to get off all pharmaceutical prescription medication that I was on for about a decade. I was looking at kidney damage, and now I'm more active than I ever have been, healthier than I've ever been, and I attribute some of that to my legal access to the medical marijuana program in Arizona, and I'm very grateful, and I like to pass on that information to the patients and help them with their struggle. So thank you for listening.
Thank you. Next.
Jim Dye.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. My name is Jim Dye. I live in Phoenix, Arizona. I'm actually here on behalf of Doug Banfelder, who's an insurance an agent at Premier Southwest Insurance Group. And unfortunately, he couldn't be here tonight because he's in Chicago for a business convention. I'll read his statement. Among other companies, Mr. Banfeld represents Lloyd's of London, which has provided general liability and other forms of commercial insurance to the legal medical marijuana industry since 1998. Lloyd's representatives say that overall their loss ratios, that is the amount paid in claims versus the premiums that they've received, is less than 25%. Here in Arizona, the experience has been even more favorable. In serving this niche since 2012, when the first dispensaries came online, Mr. Banfeld reports just one loss, and that loss happened to be from hail damage to an air conditioning unit on a building. And that's an event that could happen to any business, regardless of what type of business that it is. No losses due to criminality, even from just malicious mischief, in over 3 years have ever been reported to our agency. And I would add, actually, that Doug insures nearly 70% of the dispensaries in Arizona. There are two main reasons why these businesses are not trouble-prone: the safety and security measures required by regulators at the Arizona Department of Health Services and the caliber of people who operate them. Even among those individuals, Mr. Steinmetz is not typical. He's a hands-on proprietor with a deep commitment to honoring the trust that has been placed in him by the state of Arizona and the communities he serves. Doug sees this in the manner, I see this in the manner by which he manages his stores. He trains and cares and provides for his staff, and the belief that people with qualifying medical conditions deserve safe, convenient access to the medicine of their choice. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next.
Shelley Mallory.
My name is Shelley Mowry, and I'm a Scottsdale resident, but I'm also the Fountain Hills Substance Abuse Prevention Coalition Director. I have 15 years of substance abuse prevention and education training, and I started the statewide organization Drug Free AZ. I'd just like to take a line from the musical Chicago. I think the applicant has just given us the old razzle-dazzle here tonight. I wish I had more time to state my case in the 3 minutes I have. Here are 5 key facts to consider. Fact 1, the Arizona medical marijuana program's only requirement on hours of operation is that the dispensary be open for 30 hours. The current hours of operation are well above that 30-hour minimum. A copy of the program requirement is highlighted in yellow for you on that document in front of you. Fact 2, the applicant compares his business to other pharmacies in town. Our 6 pharmacies are open an average of 74.5 hours per week and serve 23,000 residents, many of them older adults who take multiple life-saving medications. The applicant is asked to be open a total of 98 hours per week, longer than any pharmacy, and 23 hours more than the average town pharmacy for one substance, marijuana. Fact 3, in states that have medical marijuana, there is huge buyer's remorse. Colorado just this week cracked down on the medical marijuana industry, and towns and cities are becoming more restrictive, not granting longer hours and more access. Fact 4, as you consider the health and peace and safety of our community, you should hear about these unique strands. One is called Durban poison. One is called bubble gum. It has euphoric and creative effects, and it's an overall mood enhancer. How about Baked Bros Dank Drank? Looks like cough syrup, but beware, it packs a punch with 3 grams of marijuana, available in mango, cherry, watermelon, and grape. In addition, there are cookies, cakes, and brownies that go by the names Tootsies, Gummy Bears, and Cherry Bombs. Is this real medicine for adults, or is this Joe Camel for our kids? We can't afford to make the same mistake with marijuana that we did with Joe Camel because we know what the end result will be. Fact 5, the CDC study the applicant cites was not taken by a single Fountain Hills youth. Not one single Fountain Hills youth participated in that study, according to the principal there. The Arizona Criminal Justice Commission conducts the Fountain Hills Youth Survey with more than 600 youth in our community. These are our kids that take the survey, and here's what it found. In 2014, 2 years after the first dispensary opened, 28% of our Fountain Hills youth say they got the pot they smoked from someone that was a marijuana card holder. Let me just restate that again. 1 out of 4 of our kids who say they smoke pot get their pot from someone with a medical marijuana card. And that's on him, and that's on the doctor back there. They're the only dispensary and the only person in town recommending the marijuana. As the director of the coalition, our key concern, of course, is our children. I would ask that you please accept the 6-1 recommendation from Planning and Zoning Commission and deny the applicant the extended hours. Arizona Department of Health Services deems 30 hours reasonable, and that should be reasonable for us. I'll be sitting here. I'm sorry, I'm out of time. I will be here. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer those. Thank you.
All right, next.
Douglas Hebert.
Good evening. My name is Douglas Hebert. I am a resident of Fountain Hills. I'm retired 27 years with the U.S. Drug Enforcement Administration and currently a member of the Fountain Hills Substance Abuse Coalition. And looking at the presentation this evening, the first thing that kind of came to my mind was the movie American Sniper. And American Sniper was basically vilified on one end of the spectrum and praised on the other end of the spectrum. And one of the biggest critics of the movie was Michael Moore, and who called it cowardice and whatnot. And when director Clint Eastwood came out of a restaurant one evening, a reporter walked up to him and asked him, well, what do you think about Michael Moore's comments? And he said, Michael Moore's right. And the bottom line is Clint Eastwood was later asked about that, and he said that he was not there to debate the movie. And just as we are tonight, we're not here to debate medical marijuana, whether it's good, bad, or indifferent. We're here to talk about the hours. And on April 23rd, the Fountain Hills Planning and Zoning Department was presented with the applicant's amendment to increase the hours of operation for the marijuana dispensary. When you look at the first line of the mission of the statement of Fountain Hills Planning and Zoning Department online, it states, the Fountain Hills Planning and Zoning Department is dedicated to enhancing the quality of life in Fountain Hills. And I would just like to quote from the minutes of the Planning and Zoning Department meeting that took place a few weeks ago. Planning and Zoning Chairman Lloyd Pugh stated he believed the hours currently approved should be sufficient to serve the patrons, and he was not in support of extending the hours. Commissioner Howie Jones reiterated that the hours were enough to serve the public, and the opportunity to order online and pickup service, which is advertised on the applicant's website, were readily available to patients. Commissioner Howie Jones moved to forward a recommendation to the Town Council to deny the proposed zoning ordinance text amendment, Section 24.03.b, to extend the permitted hours of operation of the medical marijuana dispensary to 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. Monday through Sunday as presented. Vice Chairman Mike Archambault seconded the motion. The request to extend the hours was denied by a vote of 6-1. What the Planning and Zoning Department took into consideration and what concerns me and other members of the community is the quality of life and the future of our children and grandchildren in Fountain Hills. The recent 2014 statistics by the Arizona Criminal Justice Commission that over 1 in 4 kids in Fountain Hills obtained their marijuana from a cardholder pretty much says it all. On the applicant's own website, and what he did not mention in his presentation, is that he is marketing his marijuana as bubble gum, cotton candy, Moby Dick, Jolly Pops, Gummy Bears, Cinderella 99, just to name a few. It's a proven fact. If you increase the access of drugs among our youth, drug use will increase. Increasing the applicant's hours of operation, I represent to you, does not increase the quality of life in our community of Fountain Hills, but to the contrary, it will produce more drugs and more drug use among our youth. Thank you.
Thank you. Next.
Julie Duke.
Hi, my name is Julie Duke. I have been a longtime resident of Fountain Hills, where I choose to live, and abide by the hours of operation of all businesses. I have qualifying concerns regarding the applicant's request for additional operating hours. In the applicant's March 23, 2015 Planning and Zoning Division application, the applicant states in Section 6, quote, "Please note that it has been over 2 years since dispensaries in Arizona have been operational, without a single criminal incident," end quote. However, just on Wednesday, May 13, 2015, just before 5 p.m., an armed robbery took place at a medical marijuana dispensary's office in Phoenix, as reported on Channel 5 and Channel 3. Shots were fired by the robbers, then by the victims, at the robbers, into the community as the robbers were leaving in their cars. This type of an incident is clearly putting a community at risk. When voting, please keep in mind the best interest of the community of Fountain Hills. As stated in the zoning ordinance referring to the promotion of public health, peace, safety, comfort, convenience, and the welfare of the citizens of Fountain Hills. Also, I urge you to familiarize yourself with the applicant's menu items on his websites. Products, as listed before me, a few, White Widow, Effing Incredible, are clearly not traditional pharmaceutical names. In my opinion, such product names are marketed towards a retail and recreational use consumer who are familiar with the street names. Unfortunately, I have seen personally medical marijuana holders giving medical marijuana to their children to sell or themselves sell to the youth. As stated in the Medical Marijuana Act Year-End Report 2014, the highest age bracket accounting for 22.5% total cardholders, is 18 to 30 years. This group also holds the highest number of transactions, which in December of 2014 was December 31st. There are over 85 dispensaries servicing Arizona. The qualifying patient in Arizona are well covered, and also the current hours of operation are sufficient to cover the qualifying patients in Fountain Hills. I do have a son who has potentially life-threatening side effects from a disease that he has, and he takes medication for that. If I don't plan to pick up his medication during business hours, I just wait until the next day. So I do have to plan for that. As a resident of Fountain Hills, considering the risks to the community, the applicant's product marketing, the sufficient current operating hours, I implore you to accept the Planning and Zoning's 6-to-1 recommendation to not extend the hours. Thank you.
Thank you. Next.
Maria Peralt.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. My name is Maria Peralt, and I've been a resident of Fountain Hills for the last 23 years. In April 2014, the Arizona Department of Health Services reported that there were 310 medical marijuana cardholders registered in Fountain Hills. In March 2015, it was 358. That's 48 new cardholders in Fountain Hills over the last 12 months. Yet the applicant is looking to extend his hours from 56 to 98 hours per week. That is a 75% increase of hours to accommodate a 15% increase in Fountain Hills customers. In addition, the Arizona Department of Health Services Medical Marijuana Act requires that a dispensary be open 30 hours per week minimum. Anything above 30 hours is at the discretion of the town or city it is located in, and that's why we are here this evening. There is no Arizona state mandate that dispensaries be open 7 a.m. to 10 p.m., as the applicant stated in the Planning and Zoning meeting we had. It's also in the minutes. He stated that there is a state mandate for dispensaries to be open from 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. That is incorrect. The dispensary, at 56 hours, the dispensary is already at virtually double the number of hours deemed necessary and responsible by the state's Medical Marijuana Act. Also, in today's Town Council Agenda Action Form, which I'm sure you're all familiar with, it states that staff has received no complaints other than from the applicants regarding the requirements of this zoning ordinance. The applicant previously stated that he needs extended hours so that cardholders can have access to refills in a timely manner. I would assume that anyone in chronic pain would plan ahead to be sure that they have what they need before their next refill. And to assist with ordering, the dispensary now offers a pre-order form on their website so that customers can plan ahead and have their orders picked up from a special order window according to the website, in as little as 30 minutes. It says, please allow 30 minutes before picking it up. From my experience, I generally have to wait much longer than that when I get my prescriptions at any local pharmacy. The first paragraph of Section 3 of the Planning and Zoning Division application that was submitted states, and I quote, "Other compelling factors beyond the applicant's control suggest a change to later hours and the addition of Sunday operating hours to be appropriate," end quote. However, he does not elaborate on what any of these compelling factors are. Personally, I believe the applicant is positioning himself what may very well be the transition of a current medical marijuana dispensary into a recreational one. If a ballot initiative to legalize marijuana in 2016 is passed, the applicant will, by state law, automatically be granted a license to sell, manufacture, and distribute recreational marijuana. If you approve the request this evening, this jewel of the valley, as Fountain Hills was referred to earlier. You must also be prepared to call Fountain Hills home to a retail marijuana dispensary that will be open 14 hours a day, 7 days a week. Tonight, you are voting on public policy in regards to the promotion of public health, peace, safety, comfort, convenience, and general welfare of the citizens of the town of Fountain Hills. I ask that you accept the Planning and Zoning's 6-to-1 recommendation to deny any extension of hours. Thank you.
Thank you. Next.
Audra Costo Thomas.
Hi, Audra.
Howdy. My name is Audra Kester Thomas. I am a resident and homeowner here in Fountain Hills and employed full-time by a Fountain Hills-based community planning firm. I'm also the mother to a darling 3-year-old daughter who normally would accompany me on my public service activities, but tonight is fighting a little bit of a cold. I'm here at the request of Dr. Sue Sisley, whose video was truncated earlier tonight, national expert and leading researcher on medical marijuana. She is I consider her a close personal friend, and also I'm pleased that Mr. McDonald is here this evening, a gentleman whose story I've heard previously and for whom I have great respect. I'm here to support the extended hours for the medical marijuana dispensary to become consistent with competitive dispensaries around and to align with and mirror the type and kind of access provided to other community pharmacies. I've had the chance to tour, in fact, the Phoenix facility Mark owns and have been tremendously impressed with it on a personal note and encourage you, if you haven't already, to tour a facility yourself. This comes into compliance then also with ADH rules and provides competitiveness with other dispensaries. I hope that you and the town would agree that we want to support wellness and access to wellness and health care for our residents, and that we wouldn't want government to get in the way of truncating the success of small businesses and entrepreneurs, and certainly would disagree that it's the role of government to get between and in the way of a patient-doctor relationship. I'm here to support the extended hours for a competitive business and would take issue with the omission of a strategic plan reference to this item, arguing that provision of wellness access and healthcare access falls under our value of public safety, health, and welfare within our strategic plan, and in particular, strategic directions P4, which is to explore health and welfare opportunities, and P5, the support of health and wellness instruction, and specifically would forward the performance question, expanding health and wellness facilities. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you. Next.
Senator John Kavanaugh.
Good evening. Pleasure to be here, even though it's late. John Kavanaugh, Fountain Hills resident, obviously. With apologies to Andrew, lawyers have a saying: if all the facts argue against your client's case, argue everything but the facts. And that's exactly what you saw here this evening. Their presentation was almost exclusively about the efficacy of medical marijuana and its legality, as if you were the U.S. Congress and you were deciding whether or not to change the law and make it legal. That's not the case, and I applaud Councilman Magazine for saying, hey, maybe you want to talk about the hours and not everything else. Although, as you note, you could have been talking to the wall, because nothing changed after that until the council finally had to say stop, which is unusual for this council because it's always a very receptive council. I oppose this because, frankly, it is against federal law. I mean, it's legal at the state level because of a voter initiative. But at the federal level, this is a criminal activity. And if the present administration were enforcing federal law, we would not be here talking about the hours of operation for this business. We would be talking about the visitation hours in federal prison for the people who are operating it. That's the simple fact about that. As to the effectiveness of marijuana, well, the only reason why we have it at the state level is because a campaign convinced the voters by a very thin margin to approve medical marijuana for a long list of conditions, which, by the way, their slide said is ADHS, Arizona Department of Health Services, approved. It is not. ADHS has not approved marijuana for anything. It's just the voters that did not the Arizona Department of Health Services. They're forced to administer the program. In fact, the only medical authority that actually does drug approvals is the U.S. FDA, and they have not approved medical marijuana for the treatment of any condition, much less the ones that they're dispensing it for now. However, I don't want to do what they did and argue everything but the facts. So let me get to the facts, the operating hours. I submit to you that the initiative which the voters passed argues against extending the hours. That initiative was very clear. Medical marijuana dispensaries are supposed to be local. They set up 98 statewide in distributed areas because they wanted these to be local dispensaries. And what they're doing here is violating the will of the voters. And I know that because the applicant, the owner of the dispensary, a week before the P&Z hearing, said in the newspaper he needed the extra hours so his clients, his customers from Yuma and Williams could make his hours. He wants to make Fountain Hills Dispensary a statewide distribution hub for medical marijuana. And the law clearly says that's not what it's about. It's about local dispensaries in local areas. He's trying to subvert that. And amazingly, the few times they addressed the issue of hours, that came out tonight. I'm not sure if it was which of his presenters, but they alluded to the fact that his strain is superior to the other strains. That's why there's all this demand for everybody statewide to come here and buy his marijuana. Again, violation of the proposition that these are supposed to be local dispensaries. And then to compound that, one of his employees came up during public testimony and said, people are traveling from all over the place to come here for our superior strain of marijuana. Again, they're trying to turn Fountain Hills into a statewide distribution hub for marijuana, and that's bad for Fountain Hills, and it's also a violation of this particular law. And for that reason, I would ask that you deny this application.
Thank you.
Linda Bordeaux?
Good evening, council members, Senator Kavanaugh, and Mayor Kavanaugh. I have a few things to say. I'm glad I went last because, wow, Dr. Jameson is a brilliant naturopath, and she also happens to be my doctor. So I really don't appreciate the condescending remarks that were made by other speakers about her. She came up here with the intent of trying to educate people about why this is actually a medicine. The body has an endocannabinoid system that was put there by nature. And the cannabinoids in the product marijuana serve to match up with those cell receptors to cure disease. The gentleman never stated that his strain was the greatest one in the state. What he was trying to impress upon you was that there are different strains made specifically for different conditions, and not every pharmacy carries all the strains that are out there. Why are they named Bubblegum, Cinderella, White Widow? I don't know. They're growers. Maybe they were stoned and thought they were funny. I don't know why they named them what they named them. The dispensary doesn't name the product. The growers do. And some of it is tongue-in-cheek. Charlotte's Web was named after the little girl who had grand mal seizures. It wasn't designed to bring young people into using medical marijuana. So I just wanted to correct a few things that I just heard. I was kind of surprised to hear it. Senator Kavanaugh has spoken to me in the past and has told me the same thing about the FDA, why they don't approve it. It's not approved. This is the FDA that's run by the Monsanto Corporation, ex-vice presidents, that are genetically modifying our food, that refuse to have it labeled. Why would the FDA possibly approve medical marijuana? Big Pharma is so invested in lobbying and paying for this. The money's in the medicine. It's not in the cure. It's the medicines that you're taking that you hear on television with a laundry list of side effects that are way worse than the original condition. That's Big Pharma, and that's why the FDA is never going to approve this. It would put them all out of business. I did not intend to be this worked up when I got up here, but I really have some passion for this. And as far as the AHDS approving the medical marijuana or the conditions, they gave a list of conditions to these dispensaries saying this is what you're allowed to treat for, and that's what the gentleman was referring to. He wasn't saying that they've approved marijuana for all these conditions. They're saying these are the conditions we're going to allow you to prescribe to. So I just want to clarify that as well. I think people coming from all over the state, why they're doing it is because there's a certain strain at one pharmacy and maybe not in Payson where the pharmacy is up there. So they drive down the hill to Fountain Hills to get the one that's going to be most effective to them. In my opinion, I don't have a medical marijuana card. I can't. Do you know why? I'm a United States Marine with a concealed carry permit, and if I get a medical marijuana card, they'll come confiscate my weapons. How do you like that? I'm a perfect candidate for it. I have chronic pain. My ankle looks like a jigsaw puzzle on the inside. I have rods and plates and screws all over my body, and that's what I'm faced with because of the way the conditions are around this product. So, in my opinion, I think you ought to extend the hours. It's not going to allow children to buy medical marijuana from card holders. I just don't buy that number. I treat children in the Fountain Hills High School for drug abuse. I can tell you they're snorting Cheetos now, fiery Cheetos, to get high from. They're smoking heroin. They're shooting heroin. They're smoking crystal meth. They can go out at any time and get marijuana anywhere they want, and they've been able to since, as far as I can remember, since I was in high school. It's not really coming from these card holders. They're grandmothers and grandfathers. I'm over my time. I thank you for indulging me and allowing me to go over my time, and I appreciate your time and attention.
Janice, anyone else?
No, Mayor.
Okay. We'll open it up to council discussion, questions. Anything before I close the public here? Oh, okay, do that first. All right, I close the public hearing. Consideration of ordinance 1506 as just presented. Now we'll open it up to discussion. I'm sorry, it's getting late. Any?
Sure, Mayor.
No, I'm sorry, the public is closed.
Public hearing's closed.
Public hearing is closed. Public hearing is closed, thank you. Yes. Okay, good. And we gave you more than the time that I've ever given anybody else, so thank you very much. I'm sorry, this is our town council. Thank you. Council, any questions or comments?
I have a brief comment, Mayor.
Councilman Leger.
First and foremost, I want to thank everyone that spoke this evening. Your position is your position, and I respect that. And I particularly appreciate the fact that for such a difficult topic, a very controversial topic, we've had a very civilized dialogue. So that's a credit to each and every person that spoke. The presentations were a little long, but once again, thank you for the information. I think it's been stated by someone that spoke here this evening. It was reiterated by Councilman Magazine and someone else that spoke this evening, that we're not here this evening to litigate the merits or not so, or the non-merits of medical marijuana. We are simply here to make a decision as to a dispensary, which by law, agree or not, is legal in our town. The owner of the dispensary was before us on a previous occasion, asking to extend the hours to make things a little more, longer hours to accommodate the patients. And I believe council approved that and extended the hours. At this particular point in time, my decision and my vote needs to go specifically to the hours, not to relitigate the issue, and I just want to make that clear. But thank each and every one of you for sharing your position and your passion on this very controversial topic. Thank you, Mayor.
Anyone else?
Sure, I'll jump in.
Vice Mayor?
Thank you, Mayor. So we've heard a lot of people and a lot of facts and some difficult conversations, and I have to agree with Councilmember Leger that I respect the calmness and the politeness from everybody on each side, and I, as usual, have a spin on this. And as I stated in the last hearing, we've sold a business license to a company, and I don't believe that it's the government's position to regulate or tell a business owner how to run his business. And I truly believe that without one instance in Fountain Hill, not one not one call to the sheriff's department, not one call to me from a citizen, not one from a student in high school, any student. Not one person has contacted me with any concerns at all over the last 2 years about this medical marijuana facility. Not one person. And as I stated earlier, I'm not going to stand here and try to regulate or run his business for him. I'm going to stand and say the man is holding his hand up saying, you know, I'll take 9 to 7. I'll take 9 to 7. And I would have to say, yeah, I'm going to give you 9 to 7, but don't come back to this council and ask it to be 8 to 8 or 8 to 10, because I feel like that if this council decides to give you the hours that you're asking for, 9 to 7, 7 days a week, I feel like that we've done all we're going to do. I'm certainly tired of the presentations. I mean, I'm totally tired of the presentations. And I will support that 9 to 7 request.
Councilman Yates?
Thank you, Mayor. Not to get into the minutia, and thank you, everyone. As my colleagues have stated, you were here a year ago, you asked for an extension, and the council gave you an extension based on that premise. Here we are a year later and having the same conversation. So no, I'm not for doing this. I didn't vote for it then. I'm not going to get in the minutia. I'm not getting in your business. You know, good luck to you. I really mean that. It is a legal substance, and you're allowed to do that. But these are the parameters of which you took the license at that location, and you've been given one extension already. So no, I am not in support of this. Thank you, Mayor.
Councilman DePorter?
I mean, this is always we knew it was going to be a long night and a long topic. I agree with Vice Mayor Brown on this. I don't believe it's the place for us to be in the business hours. But beyond that, when I go back to what Audra Kester-Thomas, one of our speakers, said, you know, we talked about quality of life, promotion of public health. And again, we're talking about something that has been approved by the voters, whether it be by a small margin or not. It has been approved by the voters. I really do believe, and I believe in sound scientific proof. I believe in statistically significant surveys. And for me, the overwhelming evidence shows that this works. Access is key. Of course, planning is very important when you're talking about pain management, but sometimes that just doesn't happen. Excuse me, that just doesn't happen. On a personal note, I took my parents to this dispensary on an information session just a snapshot of what it's like. The room was full of 70 to 80-year-olds. It was nothing like I imagined it was going to be. I actually thought it was going to be, you know, the 20-year-olds sneaking by with their chronic back pain or my knee hurts. They were talking about their histories of medicine and how it's failed them, the traditional medicine, and how they've seen success. They were sharing stories outside of the presentation that was said, well, what doctor do you have that supports this kind of, what other research do you have? And they're sharing these ideas. I guess I don't want to go on a long spiel about it as well, but I agree with Vice Mayor Brown. I think the proposed compromise is digestible. You know, it's something that I think the town could, it's 70 hours is more in line with what the pharmacy says. And I think it's something we should consider, and I agree with Vice Mayor Brown. I would hope that, you know, a 9 to 7, Monday through Sunday would be the last time we would have to talk about it. But, you know, I would like to put myself out that I am in support of that proposed compromise.
Anyone else? Well, I'm opposed to extending the hours. I think there's a safety factor, the location, where it is. Sure, they have security guards, but this is a cash business. And as we see that robberies have already begun, we certainly don't need that here in Fountain Hills. There's certainly nothing that says he has to increase his security. We have a security guard, but still, it's a safety factor. I also feel that with 358 card holders, that the hours are sufficient. This dispensary is meant for the people of Fountain Hills. It's not like a Walgreens or a CVS that also dispenses Band-Aids, and so they stay open a lot later. This is one product, and there are only 358 cardholders. Yet it's troubling, even though you want to think of it as a business, it's troubling to hear that 1 out of 4 students get their marijuana in Fountain Hills from cardholders. That bothers me as a mother, as a grandmother. I have to consider that also when I'm thinking about extending these hours and making more access. You know, we're not talking about a Walgreens or a CVS. We're talking about a marijuana dispensary that sells one drug and that has not been approved for any of these conditions by the American Medical Association or anyone else. But not to get into that, there are 88 dispensaries or 98 dispensaries across all of the state. They were meant as a local distribution center. We really don't need to be inundated by people coming in from Yuma and everywhere else. It was specifically set up this way so that we are not overburdened. And why didn't they want to overburden us? Why don't they worry about somebody coming in here and buying something at Walgreens or coming in here to Safeway from Yuma or Payson? Because they knew that there would be a lot other factors involved with a dispensary that you don't get from these other businesses. There's a lot of other factors. Otherwise, they wouldn't need a security guard. So I'm opposed to extending the hours. I think that the hours as they are right now are adequate to cover 358 cardholders in Fountain Hills, and those are the people that we have to be concerned with. We don't have to be concerned with the people from Yuma or Page or Williams or anywhere else. And I think we have to be very concerned about the new statistics that show that our Fountain Hills students are getting marijuana from cardholders. I take that very seriously when my vote is going to be no. Councilman Magazine.
I support the compromise. I think 9 to 7, Monday through Sunday, 70 hours is reasonable. But I will say, and sort of parrot what a couple of my colleagues have said, please don't come back. And if you do, my vote will be an automatic no.
Councilwoman Hanson.
I appreciate everybody's comments. Linda, I especially appreciated yours for some of the clarification that came through. I concur with Dennis. I feel if something negative is going to happen from this, it could happen to the hours that they currently have, and I think the compromise would be okay.
Councilman Lejay?
Thank you, Mayor. Seeing that we're having this discussion and everyone else has gone off, kind of deviated from the script tonight, I'm going to deviate from the script. I want to defer a question to our town attorney. Andrew, if an individual that has a medical marijuana card gives away or sells medical marijuana to anyone else, regardless if it's a youth or their grandmother, is there a legal consequence?
Mayor Kavanaugh, Councilmember Lejay, yes.
Okay.
I would have loved to have had some time to prepare to tell you what level of crime that is, but I'm certain it's correct.
But there is legal consequence. Yes. And the reason why I wanted to go there and get a little off script and have some latitude here is that I heard this last time and I heard it the time before. And I'm just really appealing to anyone out there that if you're taking surveys and there's youth telling you this information, the people that are engaging in this illegal activity need to be addressed. Because whether I'm for or against medical marijuana, it doesn't help you one way or the other. So I just wanted to, as I said, go off script and take advantage of being able to put that little public comment in there. Thank you.
Anyone else? Councilman Brown, Vice Mayor Brown,
I'd like to make a motion.
go right ahead.
I would like to change the ordinance to read that the hours be changed from whatever they are today to 9 a.m. to 7 p.m., 7 days a week.
Second.
Any other discussion on the motion? Okay, I got a roll call vote, Janice?
Councilmember Yates?
Nay.
Councilmember DePorter?
Aye.
Councilmember Hanson?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Brown?
Aye.
Councilmember Magazine?
Aye.
Councilmember Leger?
Nay.
Mayor Kavanaugh?
Nay.
5-2.
I believe it's 4-3. Jane.
4-3.
I'm sorry?
4, 5, 2.
Mayor, could we take a break, please?
I'm sorry. I guess
going.
Sorry, yeah.
Okay? We're on. Okay,
Motion for
we have a, yeah,
uh,
yeah, we're gonna,
break of convenience?
I apologize to Dan and to everyone else who's been waiting for the other items, but we're gonna take like a 5-minute break, okay? Thanks for being there with us. Oh, now A-frames. Okay, A-frames, fine, let's go.
Yeah, I had Jamison, Dr. Jamison, and that's all I got from her. Yeah, I apologize.
Council, can we get going? Calling all council members to the dais. Andrew, where are you? Ready? Seriously. All right, we're going to get started again. I have one staff report for items 9 and 10. Please hand any speaker cards in if you wish to speak on this topic, and I have just opened the public hearing to receive comments on ordinance 15-04, amending the zoning ordinance, Chapter 6, Section 603, subsection A 13, in order to eliminate the requirement that A-frame signs receive a permit. Bob?
Thank you, Mayor. I'll point out that my presentation, the last one, was very short.
Make it shorter.
Yes.
The A-frame sign permit requirement was adopted in 2009. Initially, a $5 permit fee was instituted so that staff would have the opportunity to advise businesses on the rules for size and placement when they picked up their permit. That permit fee was not designed to recoup the costs associated with the permit. In fact, it doesn't even cover the costs of materials and time to create the permit sticker. The additional costs for staff time to process and enforce the permits aren't covered either, and that's about $40. Last December, due to the high percentage of noncompliance, mainly due to failure to get the permit, council directed staff to review the A-frame permit process and regulations and return with some recommendations for revising, streamlining, or otherwise improving the permit process and/or reducing the incidence of noncompliance. Staff provided council with a report that listed a number of options. We ultimately recommended that the town eliminate the permit requirement. This does not eliminate the business's responsibility to follow the regulations or change the sunset clause. It only eliminates the requirement that an annual permit be issued. Council agreed and directed staff to proceed with an ordinance amendment that would eliminate the required permit. Council also emphasized that a notification process should somehow be attached to the business license process, and enforcement needed to be stepped up. This hearing is related to the zoning ordinance amendment, which would eliminate the permit requirement. The other two issues, the enforcement and the little flyer that we're attaching to the business licenses, have already been addressed. Planning and Zoning Commission voted on April 23rd to forward a recommendation to approve this ordinance and eliminate the permit for an A-frame sign. Staff also recommends approval. And the way we've drafted it, it would take effect at the end of the year to coincide with the expiration of the existing A-frame permits the businesses have already gotten. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions for Bob? Councilman Magazine?
Yeah, Bob, you said, I think I read or you said that enforcement had increased. How are we enforcing this?
The code enforcement officer has been making a lot of stops. There haven't been a lot of citations issued, but they're getting that initial warning, and then they've been behaving themselves thereafter.
So
We've had a few, but not too many.
Still have that just one code enforcement officer out there with
Yep.
everything he has to do.
Yep. That's the budget.
Yeah, I know.
Any other questions?
Just one other thing. There's nothing like a ticket and paying a fine to get your attention.
Seems to work.
Any other questions for Bob? Do you have any speaker cards?
Linda Bordeaux?
And she does not appear to be here. Anyone else?
No, ma'am.
Okay. All right, then I will close the public hearing. Consideration of ordinance 15-04 is just presented.
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed? Thank you, Bob.
Slowing down there. Now what you give them.
One staff report for the next 4 items. 11 to 14. 3 motions will be required on 12, 13, and 14. Open the public hearing. Receive comments on ordinance 15-05, an amendment to the Town of Fountain Hills zoning ordinance and zoning map to change the zoning on 5.75 acres from C1, neighborhood commercial and professional, to Hemingway Pad, case Z2015-01. Bob again.
Thank you, Mayor, council members. The Hemingway is a PAD zoning proposal to allow an assisted living/independent living facility located at 9700 North Saguaro Boulevard. The property is located on Trevino Drive between Saguaro Boulevard and Berkamo Drive, and it's currently vacant. There is a commercial plaza directly south across Trevino Drive. It's where Circle K is and McDonald's. There are 4 vacant single-family residential lots directly west across Berkamo Drive, and the property backs up to 5 single-family residential lots to the north. This is a slide of the current zoning map. Properties highlighted in yellow, as you can see, is currently zoned C1, and this is the area that would be rezoned to Hemingway PAD if this proposal is approved. This is an application for approval of a rezoning for the property to Hemingway PAD. The PAD would generally maintain all the C1 zoning district regulations, but the new PAD regulations would also allow for a 3-foot fill waiver. It will allow for the building height to be up to 25 feet as measured from finished floor elevation rather than existing grade. However, the actual grade would, or the actual building height would be 23.6 or 23 feet 6 inches from finished grade. It will abandon a previous development agreement for an approved project that was never built, along with a HPE, hillside protection easement, that was recorded as part of that agreement. And it will include the special use permit, which is required for the assisted living use in the commercial district. As you know, the Planning and Zoning Commission reviews and approves all proposals for new construction of commercial, industrial, and multifamily developments. The proposed 134-suite assisted living facilities concept plan was approved on April 23rd, subject to council's approval of this PAD rezoning. 9 residential buildings and 1 clubhouse building are being proposed. All buildings are single-story with a maximum height of 23.6 feet. Access is off Trevino. This is Trevino coming off of Saguaro Boulevard. The access is here. This is the driveway, cul-de-sac. 34 parking spaces are arranged around the cul-de-sac. 34 parking spaces are required by the ordinance. There are 90 spaces around the cul-de-sac. There's also an additional handicap spaces being provided in excess of the ADA requirements, and all the buildings are handicap accessible. Primary kitchen facilities will be in the clubhouse building. Food will be cooked there and then delivered to each of the residential buildings where there'll be warming kitchens only. Each IL, or independent living building, these are the 2 over here, will have 11 suites. Each AL, or assisted living building, will contain 16 suites. In addition to the residential suites, there will be a variety of additional amenities inside each building, which the applicant intends to expand upon during his presentation. Note that there's an existing swale, which kind of runs through this property and then out through here, which will be removed. The low area, right at the base of this building here, that is the area for the 3-foot fill waiver. The rerouted site drainage will be rerouted here and then piped down to a detention basin here. Traffic analysis and mitigation measures have been approved by the town engineer. The proposed monument signage and site lighting meets the zoning ordinance standards and will be installed according to those regulations. This slide shows the external amenities around in amenity areas within the property. There are a number of seating areas around the cul-de-sac. There is a small garden area. There's a tot lot here for grandchildren when they're visiting. There's a putting green down here, and then there are a couple of water features and water fountains arranged around the lot. Tentative building floor plans are also shown on this plan to give you a better idea of the building layouts internally. Again, I'll let the applicants expand more on that when they make their presentation. The site will be completely landscaped with a number of low water usage plantings exceeding the ordinance requirements. Additional plantings will also be used to help hide the basin here and then the fill area there. A lot more plantings in that area. The top center elevation is the clubhouse. The other 5 are examples of the colors being proposed for the residential buildings. And I left a couple of color and material boards up there to circulate amongst you that better show what is being proposed for the facades of the buildings.
Very nice.
There should be 2 of those up there.
There we go.
Planning and,
We have our own Vanna White here.
You can tell it's late.
Planning and Zoning Commission approved the concept plan, has forwarded a recommendation to approve the PAD rezoning, subject to the stipulations in the staff report, with an additional stipulation, number 12. Planning and Zoning Commission recommended that compliance with the public art requirement should be eliminated as a requirement and replaced by a stipulation that says public art requirement should not be required in this instance. That stipulation is actually in the staff report and is listed. Staff recommends that council approve the PAD rezoning subject to the staff report stipulations 1 through 11 only, and not consider the last stipulation 12. If the approval is granted. Thank you. That's my presentation.
All right, thank you, Bob. The applicant would like to make his presentation now? Yes. Finally. Thank you for your patience.
He's only got about 43 slides.
52. Okay.
Can we start at 51?
Wait a minute, Bob did. Let me get my glasses. Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Council. I'm Dan Kaufman, Fountain Hills resident. I have been informed by Dave Montgomery I got 5 minutes because we're cutting into his bedtime, so he's going to leave if I don't get through in 5 minutes. So, I'm Dan. Okay. I got to make sure Bob's got this set up right. I'm Dan Kaufman, the applicant and developer of the property, the Hemingway. Kaufman Real Estate and Development is a local land development company based out of Fountain Hills for over 20 years. I have been volunteering in the community with kids sports, helping the veterans in many ways, and in many fund drive projects. I have developed condominium projects, commercial projects, including charter schools, preschools, commercial office buildings, apartments, and many community subdivisions, including active adult communities and family-oriented communities of over 1,000 homes. The Hemingway at Fountain Hills is assisted independent living as a unique, mixed-use, home-like setting of independent and assisted living community consisting of 7 assisted living homes, with each home having 15-foot dramatic ceilings, 16 large suites, laundry, office, beauty parlor, secured medicine room, large kitchen, living room, a spacious dining room, and a library area, which will be used for education, exercise, games, worship, and social events. Each large suite will have a niche for family portraits, a wet bar area, custom designed adjustable closets, and oversized bathrooms and roll-in showers. Each 18 by 25 patio will be used for outdoor activities with raised gardens and water features and other activities out there. The 2 independent living homes will consist of 10 one-bedroom and a living room suites and 1 two-bedroom suite, and will also have the same options as assisted living. The home-like environment will provide a warm, comfortable, peaceful lifestyle for our residents. The White House Council on Aging recommends the best way for seniors in need of care to maintain a high quality of life is to live in a home setting. There will be daily activities for residents to choose from, or they can simply enjoy taking walks or gathering with neighbors on our beautiful landscape grounds. The clubhouse will offer more amenities to our residents for larger group social events. It will also include offices for our management and a commercial kitchen where all meals will be cooked on site and distributed to each house. After interviewing medical professionals and assisted living managers, They have all agreed for a need of this type of community in Fountain Hills. It is between the larger institutional assisted living communities and your local neighborhood converted homes into group homes. It allows for a more professional setting, but a more personal and a family atmosphere that is affordable and family-centered. The location is the key to the success of the Hemingway at Fountain Hills, tucked in between residential and commercial, with easy access to shopping, Sky Harbor Airport, Fountain Hills, Mason, Scottsdale, which will all benefit all who live here and visit here. Because of the type of business, there will be minimal traffic, crime, and hopefully very quiet. The Hemingway at Fountain Hills is planned as an assisted independent living single-level homes at the corner of Saguaro and Trevino. The land is varying slopes, generally sloping from the north to south and bordered by 5 single-family homes to the north, Montero Ranch condominiums across Saguaro Boulevard to the east, single-family vacant lots on Berkamo to the west, McDonald's and Circle K to the south across Trevino Drive. The Hemingway will be tucked between single-family homes, condominiums, and commercial property, making a perfect transition between all sides. The Hemingway is incorporating a different spectrum of assisted independent living. Instead of your typical large institutional living, the Hemingway is designed with single-level homes incorporating a more home-like environment living with a careful mix of elevations, paint, steel accents, roof, and stone colors, which all offer a variety of elevations. These plans offer a mixture of unique and identifiable assisted living homes, giving the best aspect of assisted living. The design intent is to focus on designs that are authentic to the area, that introduce home styles with architectural variety, and integrate design techniques and materials to create a strong, unique design theme for the community. The site planning and design will create a distinctive environment to add to the overall quality of the community. Careful site planning will focus on the front relationship of the homes and visible elements to meet the demand and functional needs of our residents. Integrated into the dramatic desert environment, emphasis has been put on the luxurious front yard of each resident with landscape elements, approximately 30 different convenient sitting areas, beautiful resident water features, areas, a large neighborhood area or garden area for residents to get back to nature, a secure play area for grandkids to enjoy while visiting, ramada for family outdoor gatherings, and a large putting green to allow our wonderful, adventurous residents to gather for even more socialization, thus creating a unique and well-rounded neighborhood. The sidewalk in the community will allow for a better circulation to each of these special areas for the neighborhood. This will be very similar to the medium we have out front here on Avenue of the Fountains with the walking and the sidewalk. It's hard to see, but all the yellow areas there are all sitting areas from different sizes. We got ramadas, waterfall features, so we can have more socialization and more neighborhood togetherness there. The dramatic site lighting will comply with the Town of Fountain Hills lighting ordinance. Because of the numerous amenity areas, there will be sufficient lighting for safety and still allow the residents to enjoy the stars and outdoor activities. A comprehensive landscape plan will be utilized to ensure the overall landscape design intent. The planning design will establish a strong visible link between the new construction, our neighbors, and the native setting. All site improvements will be complemented with a landscape of native trees, cacti, and ground cover. All plant materials shall conform with the Town of Fountain Hills approved plant species list. Reuse of boulders on the site will be organized to blend in with our landscape. All proposed signage will be integrated with the overall community theme. All signage will be incorporated with care so as not to result in visual clutter within the community. Proposed signage will be at the entrance of the community on Trevino Drive and at the corner of Saguaro and Trevino Drive. The signage will follow the Town of Fountain Hills signage ordinance. The signage design will incorporate rusted steel, block walls, and boulders to blend in with the Sonoran landscape. There's benefit, impact on the Fountain Hills with local jobs, creating a lot of local jobs, development fee, rental tax, and property tax for the Fountain Hills School District. Visitors and residents will dine in area restaurants and shop at local merchants. The quality assisted living, independent living will have a tremendous impact on the quality of life for residents at Hemingway and Fountain Hills. The Hemingway will be designed in incorporating sustainable design into the format of the houses with landscape, low-water desert plants, dual-pane vinyl windows, efficient AC units, recycling, Energy Star appliances, low VOC paint, lighting, LED lighting, CFL lighting, garden areas, cool roofs, increased insulation, low water plumbing fixtures and water closets, automatic humidity sensors and fan controls in all the bathrooms, which detect the moisture in there and it automatically turns on and off so people don't forget and gets the moisture out. Auto lighting sensors in bath closets and specialty rooms. The Hemingway will create an environment for residents to support the community's commitment to environmental stewardship and integrate sustainability into the lifestyle of the community. This will be a unique, one-of-a-kind, sustainable assisted living community. I have met with several neighbors prior to P&Z and listened to their concerns, and a lot of this was prior to early planning stages before I met with them. In their concerns, one was views, which Bob has talked. We have actually cut into the hillside into the back to balance the side out, and they are all single-level homes, not two-story. Noise, minimal noise compared to if they were apartments, restaurants. The buildings actually, because of down at McDonald's and Shea, the ones that are closest, I don't have that, but are closest to Trevino will actually help noise circulating up through from the local restaurant or McDonald's in that area. Traffic assisted living is very minimal. It's a lot less than apartments and restaurants. We've added turn lanes at McDonald's, and they've also, the city has widened all that to help minimize the traffic. Another concern was the neighbors of the value of the homes. These are single-level, million-dollar homes, and if there was apartments, restaurants, this may be a different issue with the value. The density was another issue. Because these are suites in nine buildings, I could put in 1,500 square foot, multi-level, three-bedroom homes, condos and apartments, and I'd have higher density by doing that. And that's all I got. Thank
Okay.
you.
Thanks.
Did I make it? Yep, Dave's still here.
2 minutes.
Do we have speaker cards for this?
Dan.
We do.
We do.
Yes. Rose, would you mind coming up and pronouncing your name?
Because you want to go home, right?
Good evening, everyone. I moved here about 6 years ago.
What's your name?
Rose and Nudie, and I live in Fountain Hills.
Thank you.
And I forgot the rules. And I moved here from Michigan about 6 years ago because I'm disabled, have many illnesses, and I enjoy Fountain Hills very much. I knew the property was going to be sold at one point. The realtor said to me, it's for sale, and always thought about what's going to happen next. Mr. Kaufman has met with me and several of the neighbors, actually all of us, that wanted to meet with him. He was there and he met with us. My concern was view, because my house borders the line. I was the one closest to the property. And he assured me view is not going to be an issue. Like he said, he's cutting into the property. And I really support the project. Even though I'm not close to his project, but it is the best of the alternative. Apartments would be worse for me. I like the quietness, and I'm hoping that this project will go through, as I have looked into it very deeply, and I believe it would be the best suited project to be put there. $1-million homes, and value would not be as bad as apartments and things of that nature. I think I will conclude there, and you all have a good evening.
All right, thank you.
Art Tullis?
Parties at 2 a.m.
Anyone else? Janice? Anyone else?
Art Tullis.
Art Tullis.
I was here for that dog statue. I wanted to say I'm in favor of the dog statue, but my name's Art Tolis. I'm a resident of Fountain Hills, and I'm here to speak in favor of this project. Dan Kaufman has been in this community for many, many years, and he has developed many projects in this community, and each and every one of the communities that he has developed has been an asset and has been done professionally, and he clearly is an experienced developer for this community, and I feel that his experience is needed in this town right now to develop a project such as this. The parcel that he is looking to develop and changing this zoning, I feel is warranted due to the fact that it has been many times has been tried to be developed, and there has been other proposals for this property that has been different than what Dan is now proposing, and it's the highest and best use, in my opinion, for this property. It is going to be, as the previous speaker had indicated, I feel that it is going to be a development that is not going to adversely affect the neighborhood that is adjacent to the property. I think that the noise of an assisted living facility is probably, we would all agree, is going to be minimal at best. I think that we have experience with other facilities in this community that market to this type of demographic, and they are very successful in this community and have very, very low noise associated with their projects. This community, as the Arizona State University has published reports in regards to the demographics, is an aging community. And with the aging population of this community, this type of a project is needed in this community. And this particular area that he is proposing to put this in, I can't, for me, and in my real estate background, identify any other parcel in this town that would be more appropriate for this type of community, in this type of a development. You have other, if you are thinking of what other uses of this particular parcel, you can look at other commercial parcels, properties that may be something that would be developed in this area. That would be that, for instance, an example would be the Fire Rock commercial property that is close to this particular parcel with a lot of vacancies. And so really the need for any type of office space is very, very minimal. So I would speak highly in favor of your approval for his recommendation for the change, and I think it'll be a very positive asset to this community. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Art. Anyone else?
No, ma'am.
Okay. All right, then I will close the public hearing. Yeah, I know how to do it. I'm doing it long enough.
Drum roll.
Just anxious to go home. I don't know why. It's only a little after 10. All right. Number 12, remember we'll need a motion for this one. Consideration of ordinance 15-05, an amendment to the Town of Fountain Hills zoning ordinance and zoning map to change the zoning on 5.75 acres from C1 neighborhood, commercial, and professional to Hemingway Pet. Any council discussion?
Quick question for Dan.
Absolutely. Dan? Councilwoman Hanson?
It's an easy one.
Oh, I didn't know if I needed
You don't need
Take my glasses.
No.
Okay.
It was just in the staff report, and the stipulations that came forward from P&Z. The last one had to do with the public art requirement, so they were recommending waiving that. And I didn't, did you have a problem with, staff is recommending to leave that requirement in? And I just wondered if you had, if
No.
that was an issue of yours or just,
No, came out of, we don't know where it came out of. It was thrown at me and I agreed, but I'd go either way.
okay, thank you.
Yeah, I'm not, okay. Obviously, I'd like to have it, but if it doesn't, I'm not going to cry.
Anybody here? Anybody?
Mayor, just real quickly, thank you. Dan, we had talked early on in the project, and one of the things we talked about was the neighborhood and the impact this development would have on them, and you assured us that you would do your due diligence and have those meetings, and we've got people speaking in your favor. So as a local developer, I appreciate your efforts in terms of
Thank you.
looking for and engaging in a project that's mutually beneficial. I've gone by that property so many times, and as has been stated, there certainly could be things that could be more adversely affect that neighborhood. So appreciate your efforts in that regard. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilman Magazine?
I just want to say that I met with Dan as well, and I'm very impressed by this project. I think, if I recall correctly, I think you told me you'd spent about 13 years thinking about this and gathering information and traveling around the country and so on.
Mhm.
I think this could very well become a model for this kind of facility for these kinds of folks. So I congratulate you. I think you've really gone the last mile on this one.
Thank you.
Love the color board.
You want to hold it up again?
Okay, you can go first.
Oh,
Unless
thank
you're
you.
making a motion, I was going to make a comment. Go ahead.
I wanted to comment too. I have a unique position where I get to speak with other municipalities, and Dan's well-known in Apache Junction as well. They said some very nice things about you with some of the work you do out there. And also want to compliment you on picking the cluster home idea, which kind of came out at a back east. I had the opportunity to look at the Lifestream cluster homes out in Peoria. Really neat product. It kind of gives you images of the Waltons and everyone sitting around a big table. A well-needed product. And with over 10,000 people a day turning 65 for the next 20 years, actually I think almost 30 years, I'm just glad you found a niche of this is a unique product that's well-needed. But
Thank you.
thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, I guess everybody pretty much said what I wanted to say. I met with you, I looked at the project, I think
Okay.
it's really great, it fits in well. I love that you talk to the neighbors are happy with it. It's always easier when the neighbors are happy.
Mhm.
I know Public Art is not that thrilled that they're not going to get their public art, so, however the council wants to go on that. I know I was at the meeting and you said you didn't ask for it. I saw dogs in there, you're dog friendly, you didn't mention that.
Yeah, we will have dogs. This community is going to be where you're not putting these people in a room. I want to have it where they can be outside, because, the last of your life, you want to have it full, not sitting in an institution and sitting in a room looking at the walls. And I want them to be outside. I got the garden areas, the big patios, 18 by 25 patios where they can go out and get fresh air and get their hands dirty in the gardens of, stuff.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's gonna,
Is there an age requirement for this? Will there be?
No. Well, let's back up on that. I have looked at or met with, and I haven't taken any farther, but it's going to be more assisted in memory care, Alzheimer's, and independent living community. And I have met with a doctor and another person that has adult handicap children, and they're looking for a home, which would be tied into one. Now, I don't know if I'm going to go that route yet. We're still investigating it. There's a lot of adult children, and I'm talking 25 to 50-year-old, that are challenged living at home, and the parents are saying, what are we going to do? So I've been approached on using one of the houses as that. That's still in the works right now. So to answer.
Anything else?
Motion.
Go right ahead.
I'd like to move to approve ordinance number 15-05, the Hemingway pad, as presented and subject to the stipulations recommended by staff and outlined in the staff report.
Second?
Okay, any further discussion? All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Any opposed?
7-0.
Thank you. Consideration of terminating whatever right, title, or interest the town has in a certain alternative hillside protection agreement affecting property located at 9700 North Saguaro Boulevard.
So moved?
Second?
Any discussion? All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Any opposed?
7-0, Mayor.
Thank you. Consideration of Resolution 2015-19, abandoning whatever right, title, or interest the town has in a certain hillside protection easement on property located 9700 North Saguaro Boulevard.
Mayor, so moved.
Second?
Okay, and all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
7-0, Mayor.
All right, that's it. You're done.
Congratulations.
Great job.
Thank you very much.
Okay, number 15. We have the lights over there, discussion with possible direction of staff regarding adding lighting at the intersection of Saguaro Boulevard and Avenue of the Fountains, and authorizing staff to execute a construction contract amendment to be paid from the Downtown Strategy Fund in the amount not to exceed $66,750. Paul, you're still with us.
Yeah. Good evening, Mayor Kavanaugh, council members. Previously, staff was asked to look at lighting the Avenue of the Fountains and Saguaro intersection with the Saguaro Boulevard project. We did the design. Staff or council previously approved contract amendments not to exceed $100,000. That was going to be done in two separate amendments with the contractor. The first was to do the underground work. That amendment has been executed with the contractor, and that was roughly for a little over $33,000, and that was to underground the conduit for the lighting. It also is putting in 2 3-inch conduits for a future traffic signal whenever that's needed. The first slide, and then council asked us to bring back examples of the lights. So the first slide and the first existing median, that's the light fixture that's out in the medians right now and on the north and south side of the avenue. That is an incandescent light, and that does not provide enough light to light the intersection to meet the design standards we need to meet. So that's kind of what we were going for, but that can't be used. So the engineer looked at about 15 different lights, and we really have to go with LEDs because of the power, the less power requirements, because there's only so much power left to come off of the median project. So the first light fixture is the Kim light. That's the middle one. It's the round one. As you can see on the slide, both fixtures we'll be talking about require 6 poles. These lights will only need 1 fixture at each pole. So you would have 6, if you went with this route, you'd have 6 of those out there. The approximate cost, the engineer's estimate, is about $35,000 for this option for the fixtures, poles, bases, and wiring. The next option is the ELA Craft fixtures. These do not give off quite as much light as the Kim lighting, so you'll actually need 10 fixtures out there. The 2 poles closer to the median will only need 1 fixture, but the 2 poles in the median and the 2 poles on the park side would be the double light fixture that's shown on the right. These would be slightly more expensive at approximately $55,000. If you decide to go with either option, we would still recommend going with the full not to exceed the $66,750, just in case we run into anything. Just gives us the authorization to use the funding if we do run into something. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay.
Quick question.
Sure, Councilman Hanson.
Earlier in April, we got a preliminary memo from you, or Ken forwarded it to us, and it was on the cost. At that time, it was like a $9,000 difference between the two. you know, if you calculated it out, because the fixture was $1,300, and in the craft, it was $1,625. So I just wondered what caused the increase in the difference between the two from that earlier.
These are the revised numbers I got from the engineer. I think a lot of it was the different, the craft fixture, if you went and picked them up, it's a lot heavier. So it's the poles, the bases.
Okay.
So.
Thanks. I just.
Yeah. I threw it, in these numbers you're seeing too, I threw in a little contingency just to cover, unknowns too, so.
Paul, how is that craft one for maintaining it? Is that glass on it?
I mean, I've never dealt with those before, so unknown. Yeah, that's one thought we have, that somebody could easily throw a rock, and I think it's a plexiglass, but if you hit it, it would. I would have to look it up, but yeah, that could be an option. I mean, that could be a concern. Plus, they would get dirty, dusty.
Yeah, but that middle one, I don't know.
Oh, I hear you. You can go, I mean, we can go with shoebox style lighting too. I mean,
Shoebox?
it's just the standard arm.
Oh, parking lot? Wait, I've got Councilman Porter.
I was just gonna, from an aesthetically pleasing part, I do think that the craft is a lot more digestible. The cost is certainly something to consider, but I'm wondering, as you roll up to that, if it's on the street, so you'll roll up and just be staring at the LED light bulb, right?
It'll be bright. It'll be bright, yeah.
As opposed to the Kim, which points the light down, and that's the benefit of it.
Actually, with the craft, the LEDs are up under the top.
I'm sorry.
It's not
in the
it's not in the glass. It's up under.
Okay.
So it's shielded then?
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're not staring at just the bulb.
Do we need the glass?
That's a good question.
I don't know if it's an option to take it out.
Mayor, can I just finish? And my first thought when I looked at the Kim, I'm like, it looks like a nest already, like it wants birds in it so bad. And we got plenty of them. We have plenty of them to hang out in there. I'm sure
that is true.
I'm sure it'd be an issue on any, fixture you find, but that would need those scary looking needles on it right away so that the birds didn't hang out.
I'll tell you, the median ones and the ones in the right of way, they
collect.
Yeah, they're all full of bird droppings.
So that was I just wanted to just comment on that. I do personally think the craft I see this entry point from the lake to the avenue as really kind of the gateway of walking into our highly utilized median parkway now. So I think since we're going to do this once, hopefully for a long time, I think we should go the route that blends well with our environment. Yeah. Can I make a motion? It's late, isn't it? Can I make a motion to accept the craft LED lights?
Second it.
Not to exceed the $66,750.
Okay, Vice Mayor Brown?
I had one comment. Are these our only options?
That's what I asked the last time.
These are the only somewhat aesthetically pleasing options that the engineer came up with. We're first constrained because we have to go with the LEDs just because of how much limited power we have out there. There was a third option that council previously ruled out. It was more,
ugly.
Yeah.
Uglier than the Kim? Just kidding. I know. I remember it. Just kidding.
Now, the poles are going to be approximately 25 feet tall out there.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Further discussion? Councilman Magazine?
Well, first, I just want to follow up on that comment. How high are they going to be?
Approximately 25 feet.
Okay, I think that may solve part of the problem. I have one at the entryway to my house that is not, it's different from that, but it's got glass and 3 bulbs in it, and it always looks filthy. But if you're 20 feet up, I think that may be okay. But I just want to mention that they do get dirty.
Honestly, it might be better if it's a little dirty.
tone
them down a little bit, because they will be.
You
they will-
said those weren't quite as bright as the middle one. That's why there had to be more of
Correct.
them.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, I have a motion and a second.
I'm sorry, Mayor.
More comment?
No, a
Councilman
question.
Yates.
In the event that you could ditch the glass, or if there's a better option, do you need some sort of formal direction, or is that something you can do?
A better option
administratively?
as a different style light?
No, a better option as far as the glass.
No, I mean, we can
Okay.
talk to the manufacturer, but
I was gonna say screen, but all right.
I think it's,
All right. I
And
move
there's
that
the
Nick
weather.
owns them. All right.
I'll get you up in the bucket.
All right. I have a motion and a second, and I think a discussion is done. So all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
All right. Thank you.
7-0,
Thank you,
Mayor.
Paul. All right.
That middle one is horrible.
Where are we? 16.
Kids look terrible.
Discussion with possible direction to staff regarding initiating a zoning text amendment to reduce the minimum size for a pad zoning application. And I'm going to go to Councilman Yates on that one.
Thank you, Mayor. As many of us know, pad zoning was initiated to kind of give the town another tool to help develop some land. And there's some projects that we're looking at in the downtown area that in order to help the staff navigate through our general plan and TCCD zoning by changing the minimum acreage requirement from 5 acre to 3 acre will open some opportunities to have some further discussion. So having said that, I move to initiate a text amendment to the appropriate portions of the town zoning ordinance to reduce the minimum size required for pad zoning from 5 acres to 3 acres in the downtown area.
All right, I have a motion and a second. Any speaker cards on this item? Janice?
No, Mayor.
All right, council discussion?
Oh, please, somebody say something.
All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Any opposed?
7-0, Mayor.
Thank you. All right, and we already did 17, so we're up to 18. Discussion with possible direction to staff regarding the lease with the Fountain Hills Community Theater. Ken or Andrew?
Madam Mayor, members of the council, as you know, the lease with the Fountain Hills Community Theater is expired. There have been discussions about what to do about that. The staff brought this back as a public item in order to get direction from council on what to do with the expired lease, and I believe that there are some options available to us.
Councilman Yates?
Madam Mayor, as you know, when the lease expired, it created an opportunity for us to discuss a new lease with the operators of the Fountain Hills Theater. So we've had that discussion, and during those discussions, it was brought up, the theater's desire to possibly acquire the theater from us. And so that opened some more dialogue. But in order to see if we could do that or make that happen, we're going to need some time to do some more research on some of the ramifications and how we were going to make that ability for them to acquire the property. So we probably want to extend the lease at least to the end of the year. But I'm open for discussion. But if there is none, I move to extend the lease to December 31st, 2015, and also direct staff to perform whatever that acquisition due diligence may be necessary in order to make that happen.
All right, have a motion and a second. Any council discussion? Any speaker cards?
No, Mayor.
All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Any opposed?
7-0, Mayor.
Thank you. Ken, do you have anything further for us?
For fear of any bodily harm, no, I don't.
All right, I see, I'm not doing activities today because we're really late.
Wow.
Okay, but I've been busy, but I have one thing to read, okay? I just want a reminder, once again, that our town businesses need all the support during the slow summer months, so choose our town when going out to dinner or making a purchase. Remember that every dime that you spend here helps our town provide all the services and amenities that make it a great place to live. So let's have some good old-fashioned hometown spirit this summer and shop your hometown. Another school year has come to an end, and graduation is upon us. On behalf of the Town Council, I want to congratulate all of our graduates, and wish you all the very best in your future endeavor. We are all very proud of you. And that's all I have for today.
Second.
And all in favor of adjournment?
Aye.
All right. We are adjourned.